been in a variety of different functions, ranging from corporate strategy to heading up our service P&L to regulatory and quality or medical affairs, if you will. And then prior to that, I was a management consultant at Accenture, and then I'm a chemical engineer by background and Booth School of Business for MBA. I'm very much looking forward to this event.
Thank you, Matt. Greg Paul.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Greg Powell. I'm the president of the WinPack portion packaging business and the equipment filling business. These businesses may be familiar with our K-Cup, which is used with KDP, and your Heinz ketchup packets. We make the filling equipment that's used to actually fill these packages. I've spent most of the last decade in general management, working on turnaround operations and manufacturing. Some of the proposals that I've looked at over the last few days are quite interesting to me, and are some of the interesting things we're doing in the business. Steam chain, for example, with what we're doing with the filling business, it may be applicable, and some of the other things that I'm hearing about maintenance excellence and 4.0 industry type things with using production data. So being in the food packaging business, several of these are very interesting to me, and I look forward to discussing them with you this morning.
Thank you, Greg. Shri, if you could, you may have to unmute yourself and join us.
Sure. I'm Shri Zahir. I'm Dean of the Carlson School at the University of Minnesota in beautiful Minneapolis right now. My background is, essentially international strategy. That's what I did my research on for a doctorate at MIT. I've lived and worked in Nigeria, Italy, France, all over, and worked also in pharma and biotech and software, many avatars before I became dean here. But it's great to be here, and I'm looking forward to listening to all the pitches.
Thank you, Shri. Betsy?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Betsy Ziegler. I'm the CEO of 1871, a tech incubator here in Chicago. We were recently named the #1 private incubator in the world. We're home to about 420 young companies, about 700 alumni companies that have created around 11,000 jobs and raised roughly $1.7 billion in capital. I spend every day, all day, working with entrepreneurs and growth stage companies and innovators. So this is, I'm looking forward to today's discussion and having the opportunity to learn about your businesses. Prior to 1871, I was an associate dean at Northwestern University. And prior to that, I was a partner at McKinsey & Company here in Chicago.
Thank you, Betsy. And Sandeep?
Good morning. I'm Sandeep. I live in Austin, Texas, and manage a couple of funds around the world and a corporate consulting company for corporate innovations. Look forward to this exciting round of presentations, and I think I work with entrepreneurs all the time, and I'm interested in each one of these stories. Let's see what we have to hear.
Thank you, Sandeep. So we'll kick off here. So as I mentioned, Alagu will be joining us shortly, and once he joins in the break, I'll bring him on and have him introduce himself. So before we kick off to the reviews, I do want to take a minute to thank some of the organizations that have helped us promote this virtual event and help us connect with the folks that are making this possible. So the folks at 1871, Matter, Minnesota Cup, Illinois State Science and Technology Alliance, the Southern California Alliance, Dallas Innovates, and also want to take this time to thank our corporate sponsors, ITW, Dover Corporation, USG Corporation, Sunoco, and ChampionX. There are a lot of people in the background that have helped us put this event together. I do want to acknowledge them. It's a long list, so my apologies in advance if I forgot someone. I definitely want to thank the advisory board, Anand Chari, Vishal Kulkarni, Satyender Goyal, Ramarao Gundlapalli, Chakri, Ramesh, and Shrikant. Thank you all very much. And there are a lot of other people behind the scenes here. Don't have time to go through all of them, but from all of us here at ISES. Thank you. So with that, we're going to bring on the first team that submitted whose plan got selected for these final 8 reviews. We had a large number of submissions, and the advising committee here had a really tough time going through all of them and selecting the top 8. So for everyone that submitted this, thanks, and for these 8, congratulations, and we're looking forward to a great discussion. So first up is going to be Atlas Open Science. Tyler, who's the co-founder, is going to join us. Srini, if you could bring the presentation up and bring Tyler in, we can start the conversation. Hey, Tyler, I see you there.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Good. All right, looks good. So Tyler, we'll let you take it from here. We'll do this as a 5-minute overview, followed by a 10-minute discussion. Srini will chime in a couple of seconds before, about a minute before we wrap up here, Tyler, so that'll cue you in for any final comments that you have.
Okay, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Hi, everyone. I'm Tyler Quarton, the founder and CEO of Atlas Open Science. I spent the last 6 years of my life in a research laboratory, passionately discovering neat and sometimes useful ways of re-engineering the genomes of living organisms. But when it came time to share one of my lab's more useful discoveries with the world, I was exposed to the real behind-the-scenes processes of academic publishing. That's why I founded Atlas Open Science immediately after obtaining my PhD. The progress and productivity of science is being hamstrung by the academic publishing process. It's antiquated, inefficient, and exploitative. And I believe that it's my duty and the duty of my talented team to fix it so that the true potential of science can be unlocked. The consumers of this multi-billion-dollar revenue-generating market are frustrated, and they're crying out for change. Next slide, please. Thank you. During my available 5 minutes of time, I'm going to try and introduce our platform's many solutions through direct contrast to the existing problems. I'm eager to dive deeper into our solutions through our subsequent discussions when more time permits. Please reach out to me. All input's highly valuable. The existing publication cycle is centered around something called a journal impact factor, a single number that ranges anywhere from 0 to 70, and the scientific ecosystem manically conflates paper quality with the paper's venue. In science, the journals determine your career growth, not the fruits of your labor. Our platform redefines impact through the lens of scientific articles and not the journals, the way it should have always been. So what does this look like in practice? A team of scientists housed in a laboratory spend years compiling a scientific discovery into a written manuscript. Then they find the journal that they best believe reflects the topic of their research, along with the consideration of trying to maximize their impact by looking at the journal's impact factor, and then they submit their work. Then the editor of the journal receives the submission, determines whether or not they believe the work is worthy to be connected to scientific peers or not, and sends your work to the experts of the field that they themselves select, and charge you an article processing fee, which on average costs around $2,000, but can go as high as $8,000 depending on the journal's impact factor. On our platform, the minimum submission fee for an article is $50, with an optional, no out-of-pocket means to pay over time through a smart contract leveraging our distributed technology. Once the experts are selected, they are then expected to give the work a critical revision to see if the document is scientifically up to snuff, solely for the integrity of science without any additional compensation for their efforts. The article processing fees on our platform go directly to pay the expert scientists for their peer review efforts. Once the back and forth between the reviewers and the submitting scientists are in agreement with one another, the submitter is faced to consider a final, uncomfortable, expensive, and ethical decision about whether or not they want to make their work openly accessible to the public, costing an average surcharge of $2,000 per submission. If they don't, their work will remain locked behind a paywall, forcing citizens and research institutes to pay the publishing groups to gain access to the articles, the latter of which cost institutes millions annually. Next slide, please. Thank you. At Atlas, we aim to revolutionize academic publishing by incorporating modern technologies such as blockchain and machine learning throughout the publication and dissemination processes of scientific publishing, and provide both scientists and citizens access to science through an intuitive web and mobile application. Now, I became interested in blockchain technology a few years back. I was enthralled with its novelty and potential utility as an open and freely distributed database, and I immediately wanted to create a new sort of blockchain of science articles. The idea has been nurtured and grown for years now to include the distribution of both scientific contents and procedures. In terms of content, our blockchain will freely distribute academic publications in the form of articles, letters, reviews, a subset of undervalued and currently untapped academic content called gray literature, which includes the peer revisions themselves. And finally, our system expands upon the traditional classification of blockchain transactions and reinterprets them as interactions to include a record of a user reading a document, a user sharing a document, a user commenting on or engaging with a document, and importantly, a document citing another document. With an explicit citation network and being able to quantify a document's impact empirically, we can remove the bias from the peer revision process, we can enable the emergence of an editorial marketplace, and we can redefine scientific impact, taking it away from the journals and giving it back to the papers themselves, all of which can be incentivized utilizing our blockchain's associated cryptocurrency. Most importantly, our platform enables scientists to generate a passive income based off the impacts of their works. Next slide, please. The most fundamental asset of this publishing market are the publications themselves. And if we look all the way back to the 1900s up to the present, we confidently see that scientific publishing output follows an exponential trend that is robust to world wars, pandemics, famines, etc. Where just last year, 2.2 million new articles were published just in 1 year. And the complete STM market revenue in 2019 was $29 billion. Looking at the kinds of articles published, we accordingly segment this market into what we believe we can obtain in 5 years. From the bottom-up perspective, we modeled our platform's article acquisition growth rate by looking at the adoption of the newest technological disruption in this market, the emergence of preprint repositories like arXiv and bioRxiv. Using this as a baseline and taking into account some time for development, we forecast that once our product is launched, we will obtain a first year's revenue of 2.6 million that will exponentially grow to the hundreds of millions in 5 years' time. Last slide, please. Thank you. For my last minute, let's take a quick step back, and I invite you to rethink about the existing—
Hey, Tyler, one more minute left.
That's perfect. Thank you. I invite you to rethink about the existing publication process for a second. Imagine if this publication process existed on another modern platform of content creation. Let's take, for example, YouTube. Let's say I make a video, I have to pay to submit it, and either pay a hefty fee to make it openly accessible, or expect each viewer, including myself, to pay each time I want to view it. It sounds insane, right? It is. It's our vision to present to the world a new and modern way to publish science, one that is equitable and accessible to all scientists, regardless of their background, and available and engaging to the world at large. I think that's all my time. I'd love to answer any questions you all might have. Thank you for listening, and thank you organizers for making this opportunity possible.
Thank you, Tyler. Very crisp. Appreciate you starting it off at such a great note.
Oh, appreciate that, Srinivas. Thank you.
Yeah. So we can go around the panel. Shri.
Of course, I had to ask questions here, right? So Tyler, I think you've done a great job sort of identifying a lot of the pain points in the publication cycle, and especially the ability to access journals. I have a couple of things that I think you need to think about very deeply.
Okay.
One is, you just seem to be targeting this quite broadly across all STEAM disciplines to start with, right?
Yes.
How do you get legitimacy for your platform? I mean, in the sense, the single most important thing for academics is the sort of the legitimacy with their peers.
That's right.
And the disciplines are quite narrow. I mean, in some sense that, they are pretty siloed, which is, it's not a great thing. I wish it was more open, but the reality is that, a certain kind of, whatever microbiologist only wants to talk to other, people in that area. And it's, there's a question of, who are going to be the reviewers? I mean, are you going to create your own journals? Is this just, for new work? Existing work, obviously you're uploading everything from DOAJ, and I have a question about that too. So what's the value added there?
Right.
But yeah, just help me understand this.
Sri, it's an honor to meet you, and thank you for your feedback. I appreciate it. It's a good opportunity for me to connect. I think I can answer this on two fronts. We have a really unique go-to-market strategy, right? As you said before, reputation is everything in the current paradigm. Right. So who would want to submit to an empty or reputation-less repository, right? So the open access movement, as you mentioned, isn't new. And there are 5 million articles that already exist that are openly accessible. But none of them have the added value of generating a passive income for scientists. Each document doesn't have its own impact, so on and so forth. So we can preload all of these articles onto our repository, let our blockchain and our technology take over to where each of these documents can start generating an impact. And in turn, they can generate a cache of rewards for the articles that already exist. And we reasoned that there's about 5.3 million articles that are published under pretty loose Creative Commons licenses. So I spoke to a couple of lawyers and they said they don't foresee any issues in preloading onto our repository. And of those 5.3 million articles, there's roughly 2.1 million unique scientists. And luckily, we have the email addresses of those scientists as well, because they're listed as corresponding authors on these open access articles. So that's our go-to-market strategy. We preload their work on our repository, we let our system calculate their impact, and we send an email and an invitation and an outreach to these people and say, hey, thank you for your contributions and pioneering work in open access. Your work has been uploaded to a repository that rewards scientists for their impact. Your document has a cryptocurrency equivalent of about $5,000 US. Log in, sign in, and you can start getting that reward for yourself. So that's kind of the first answer to them.
So you have to subscribe first before you, I mean, where are you going to actually get the revenue to pay these people? You know,
yeah.
Two things. One is I don't think scientists do this for payment. I mean,
yeah.
You have to get into their heads. None of us are doing research for the sake of being, you know, getting rich.
Yeah, but they could. I imagine a world where, you know, just like a YouTuber and other content creators can focus on the content creation. I imagine like a new breed of scientists that only want to do research, and the quality of their research goes back to fund and funnel more research, so they can really just focus on that research. Yeah.
Okay.
I did have I know probably that answer took a long time, so, but yeah, I think that's sufficient. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sri. Betsy?
Great, great presentation, Tyler. Really appreciate it. Part of my question was around go-to-market, which you answered with your previous response.
Yeah.
But can you give us a little sense of where you are, like the traction you actually have so far, and so a little bit of sense of traction, and then if you could wave a magic wand and choose two things, what would be the two things that you would choose that would help you accelerate your impact?
Two things. Okay. So my CTO just became full-time this week, and previously it's been me and another co-founder of mine kind of creating the fundraising material, creating our financial network. I'm an academic, so I didn't really have a pre-built social network for fundraising, so that took quite a while. So to date, in terms of traction, we just kind of look at the existing outcry of scientists that are boycotting Elsevier and kind of use that as a reflection of how willing people would adopt our platform. Yeah. And then in terms of two magic.
So nobody is using it. It's not in. Is there an MVP out there right now that people are starting to play with, or not yet?
That's our goal. Yeah, we're currently working on that. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the two magic spells that I would cast, we think for this round of fundraising, in order to get that MVP, $500,000. Yeah, might as well log off now. Right? Right. Sorry, misspoke there. $500,000 will give us a 10-month runway to build out an MVP that can garner traction. And we have one member on our team that's dedicated to product market fit already. She's a science writer. She knows how to connect products to scientists. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yep, thanks, Betsy.
Thanks, Betsy. We have a few more questions. So Matt, if you could come off mute and ask the next question. You're still on mute, Matt.
Crazy? Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not doing well with that today. Tyler, nice presentation. Quick question for you. I'm still struggling with the revenue model. Is the idea that each subscriber pays $50 and that is truly, then that's your primary source of revenue? And I don't know if there's other revenues. And then a secondary question is just how do you decipher the quality of the articles? I don't know if there's a rating system or some sort of a system where you establish a credit, because there's a ton of articles that are necessarily not of good quality.
Exactly.
So those two.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So within 5 minutes, it was really hard to pack in a lot of these answers.
Sure, of course, yeah.
But the revenue, there's two revenue streams that I've modeled, and then I have a third in mind that I think will be quite profitable for us to incorporate. So the first revenue stream is that minimum $50 submission article processing charge. As well, the next revenue stream is a subscription model, which is most akin to learned societies that scientists are already subscribing and paying for. So on our platform, you can do a $25 per month subscription, of course, with student discounts available, to gain a deeper insight into how impactful your work is with respect to your particular subfield of science and to your field at large. So we can help you determine how to make your work more or less more impactful, and obviously you wouldn't want less impactful. Right? And then could you remind me of your third question? Oh, the quality of it, right?
Yeah, the quality of the articles.
Yeah. So because we're distributing these document user and document interactions in terms of citation webs and reads and shares and everything like that, we can use like centrality measurements on kind of a network graph theory approach to assign really the impactfulness of each document as a node that exists within a scientific ecosystem. And importantly, we want documents on our platform to be living and breathing documents. We want that impact to go up or down, which is reflected in what's currently known in science. So if there's always an availability for people to critically peer review your work, and if they peer review it in a negative light, your impact will go down. And we hope that the system will kind of snuff out maybe the conspiracy theory, bunk, faux science, and really highlight and emphasize the real good science. So there's this notion of an impact score that papers have that's ever updating. Yeah.
Thank you, that helps clarify.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. We'll go to Sandeep and then with Greg before we wrap up.
Hey, Tyler.
Hey, Greg.
Some of the questions were the same as what Shri and Matt asked, so I will skip those.
Okay.
A quick comment is, have you looked at academia.edu?
I think I get a lot of promotion emails from them, but I've never actually logged in and subscribed to it.
So you might want to look at it. Now, what you have is similar to what they have.
Okay.
But, you know, there's differences in how you monetize it.
Yeah.
But they have managed to build a fairly strong following and database to a point where now it's, you know, it's ranked 750 in terms of websites globally, right? So that's a pretty high ranking for website traffic.
Okay.
Anyways, take a look at it. It might give you some ideas on how to go about it.
I appreciate it.
It may be a competitor, and the monetization methods they have are different than what you have.
Okay.
But you may adopt those or change your game plan accordingly.
Gotcha. Thank you for the input.
Sure.
Greg?
Good morning. Thank you for the presentation. This is a little near and dear to me. My father is a professor of biochemistry for 35 years, so I've lived in a household with bookshelves full of journals and have watched him over the years growing up with him publishing and doing his research, so a lot of which was through NIH. I'm curious, are you thinking of a subscription structure that will work for institutions like what's done for NIH, or is there a different subscription structure for institutions and that of individuals? And then secondly, I'm interested in what your thoughts are around how you incent the quality of the peer reviews themselves to ensure there's a higher quality and caliber review, if you will, is given a greater value, greater impact versus those that not as significant or more on the peripheral.
Gotcha.
The core of the research itself.
Okay. We have looked at enterprise subscription services. I've yet to model it. I need to look and see how, I need to do a little bit more market research to see how willing universities and private institutes would be interested in this. But what I have in mind for institutes is to give them insight into the productivity of their researchers. So if there's a scientist that's affiliated with a university, and that university subscribes to our service, they can kind of get a survey of the research output, and it could highlight scientists that might need more injections of funds, or maybe it can facilitate through their tenure trackness to see whether or not they're a good fit for the university, so on and so forth. Those kinds of services.
Okay.
But the pricing model and the adoption, I need to look into moving forward. And then could you remind me your second question? I'm sorry.
How you intend to incent, or do you intend to incent the peer reviewers themselves and the,
Right.
and the quality of those people doing the peer reviews?
Yeah, that's important, because right now, really, there is no kind of checks and balances for peer reviewers, right? Right. So on our system, we'll classify experts of particular subdomains, and they'll be enabled to write these peer reviews to the submitting articles. But as well, the experts can critique the other peer reviews. So there'll be kind of like a Reddit-like upvote, downvote reputation system built in for the peer revisions themselves. And interestingly, the peer revisions are documents on our platform as well. So they themselves will have an impact score, which can be affected by user input, either from experts or lay people as well. So there is that feedback loop to checks and balance for the peer revisions as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Greg.
Hey, thanks, Tyler. I just want to add one other comment here for you to consider. Do consider what you can do with corporations, especially those that are interested in early access to research. Given that you have a blockchain, you have a way of providing value there that is differentiated in the industry.
Okay.
For the others who are listening here, if you have questions or if you would like to connect with Tyler and his company, please send an email out to IACS. We are collecting all of these, and we will route them both to the panelists and to the entrepreneurs here. I know we have a bunch of folks on who are looking for some opportunities to make some smart investments, and we have folks from funds here as well. So as we get interest from them, Tyler, we'll connect them to you.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Excellent
everyone.
Presentation, Tyler. Great start. We'll bring on the next team here. That's going to be the team from CPNet. Bi-Cheng Cheng is the co-founder who'll be joining us. But while we make this transition, I want to take this opportunity to bring on Alagu, one of our panelists. Alagu is the founder and CTO of BlueJeans that was recently acquired by Verizon. So he's part of the larger Verizon family. Very proud of that. Alagu, if you could unmute yourself and introduce yourself to the team, that'll be great.
Great. Thank you, Srinivas. And, thank you. I knew, I was going to be running late this morning. It's pretty early in the morning here in California, but I had to participate in a very, very important personal event for, my dad turned 80 today. So it's a pretty big deal. And unfortunately, all of us during this COVID times cannot be with our family around the world. And I would have been in India right now, if everything was great, but we did do this virtually, like we're all doing with so many different things. So thank you for accommodating that. Alagu Prayanan, I'm joining you here from California. I was co-founder and CTO of BlueJeans, in the video conferencing space. We're now part of the larger Verizon family. I'm pretty excited about that. That was earlier this year. I founded BlueJeans about 10 years ago. Been in the Valley, 20, 25 years. Started my career at Apple all through the 90s, through some very, very interesting times at Apple back then. And then did a company called Blue Coat Systems, which was a startup that I did that got acquired by Blue Coat, which is now part of Symantec. Spent a couple of years as an entrepreneur in residence at some venture firms, Norwest Venture Partners and Greylock, before I started BlueJeans 10 years ago. And grew up in India, undergrad back in the Birla Institute of Technology and Science, and went to grad school in North Carolina at NC State. So that's my sort of brief 60 seconds.
Thanks, Alagu, and happy birthday to your dad. We are really glad that you got the time to celebrate that with him, even though it was on BlueJeans, I guess. So that's wonderful. So Bei-Cheng Chen, welcome. We're gonna chime you in, Srinivas, if you could share the presentation here, and we'd love to hear more about what you folks are doing at CPNet. So I'll hand this off.
Awesome. Yeah, so thanks for the opportunity to present here. I'm honored to present in front of this very prestige panel and experts in the staff space. So I will go right in. So CPNet, we're trying to bring machine learning-based analytics to mid-sized manufacturing companies to produce more and better products using their existing equipment. Next slide, please. Can you hear me?
Srini, can you move to the next slide? Thank you.
Yes. So what's happening here? So if you are watching, German government have this concept of industry for about a decade ago. This should be the next thing is going to change how we organize, consumes, and doing the production. And after 10 years, right now we are 2020, the world is a different place. And it seems like all those predictions has really come in true. And the World Economic Forum also make a topic back in 2016, their annual conference, and talking about how AI machine learning can be laid over existing production and supply chain system to provide this productivity we need to support this growing population while sustains our living standard. But at the same time, what we want to point out is also, McKinsey has this analysis. Right now, we have big corporations, Fortune 500 companies really recognizing the power of this. They're investing in that. But at the same time, smaller companies, mid-sized manufacturing companies are lagging behind. What's happening here is what we see right now is this K-shaped recovery. And company with more capital, we're really moving ahead. And then the one without access will be left behind. And let's turn to the next slide. So I will walk you into a factory. So in order to bring people to factory, I do have a factory background. But if you really look in their factory right now, we're working on a paid proof of concept with the plastic film manufacturers just here in US, outside Oklahoma City. The machines are fantastic, and they're producing plastic films. What's a plastic film? When you grab chips in a supermarket, the outside packaging is plastic films. The machines are running good. They're still producing enough products, but it is old. It's 20, 30 years old. They're equipped with sensors. Most of the machines in the manufacturing environment built after 1970s have abundance of sensors. But that was not the intent to do data analytics. It was the intent just there to make the machine to run. They have a very talented engineering team, make sure the machine run every day, but they struggle. They couldn't access the data inside the machine. The best tool right now in the industry, most of the times you'll be surprised, is Excel. And we do see other more advanced tools, but happy to talk more. It's not very well being used across the industry. And also we do see people talking about let's doing machine learning, let's do analytics, but it requires someone has data engineering, data scientist background to use it. And what's in front of plant manager there says how we can use all those technology people all talk about actually solve my day-to-day problem, make manufacturing better. At the same time, they do not have the amount of capital from the big corporation right now, putting millions of dollars a year, hiring a team of PhDs and masters to get AI and machine learning working. Next slide, please. So where's CPNet jump in to help? So what we do first thing, it is getting the data out, right? Unleashing the power they already get that is trapped inside the machine. Also tap into the ERP system. What's something we're doing differently? Think about what factory you should do, right? You have engineers, operators making machine running, make sure it's produced product. But as a plant manager, their sole responsibility, it is be productive. It is they look at P&L, are we meeting the market demands? Are we producing with enough efficiency, right? That's where we combine two data streams and bring the expertise from the teams here. We have this multi-stage decision-making optimization engine will tell them what's the optimal speed you run to produce more films. What's the optimal temperature pressure to allow you still maintain the high quality of productions while running a higher, faster speed. With all these recommendations, the engineers right now are enhanced and augmented by AI and machine learning. So they are able to run their best always. And what we see, it is really increase the profitability and the productivity, leverage the existing equipment. Don't have to buy new shiny robot. Just having the existing equipment over CPN AI on top, they are 3% more profitable. So that's amazing. Next slide, please. So the economics here is simple enough. It is, the idea it is with data-driven approach, the manufacturers can discover all the hidden kind of insights in the data and become more efficient. I'm happy to talk more how exactly it works during the Q&A part, that they have about 30% operating margin, typically that's in the manufacturing space, and with 3% improvement, it creates 900K in values. So CPNet trying to share part of the values, have this annual subscription to provide the AI algorithm, the cloud infrastructure behind it, also access to our data scientists, data engineers, in case engineer has certain questions. Next slide. So market is huge. So even just here in US, we find there's enough market manufacturers who are running machines that are heavily instrumented in, especially in base chemical, plastic. So it was great to connect with Greg here, talk about what WinPack is doing. So also in pulp and paper space. And they have data there already accumulated. And right now it's just overlay this additional layer of ML and AI, unleash additional power. But as more industry start to instrument in their machines and equipment, we do see this will be propagated across industry. And in the US, we see a broader serviceable market as $1.2 billion. But in the end, consider also food and beverage and other adjacent verticals. Just here in the US, is $6.5 billion. But now even talk about Europe and Asia, they're also raising to adopt this technology to become really at the front of a productivity frontier. Next slide.
So we are about just a minute left for you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Next slide, please. So the thing, so why is us? So me, Bichen, so I leading a global the manufacturing innovation team for S&P 500 company before. So actually I saw it works. We just spent a lot of money and time to make it work. So have done this across globe, every continent where the manufacturing happens, I was there. And together with my Wharton classmates, Gary Olszewski, he was with PwC for years, Columbia Operational Research Master, highly quantitative. So combine our quantitative backgrounds and industry experience, well, one of really few teams on the market, not only delivering the tech, but also solving adoption issues. That concludes my pitch, and I'm open for any questions the panel have.
Thank you very much. Let me just see if there are any questions that are coming up. Greg, I think I see your arm, and Matt. So why don't we start with Greg, and then we'll go to Matt and then Sandeep.
As he may not be surprised, we do extrusion molding, cast and blown films, multi-layer up to 9 and 11 layer film structures for the packaging industry. And we are in the process right now of evaluating various solutions exactly like you're describing. Pi may be one you may be familiar with, and they charge on a per sensor basis. So you are attaching and gathering data and that's tremendously expensive and not something that we would ever consider with the number of sensors that our intricate processes have. Okay, so what we're finding though is that most of our control systems are collecting the data, but nothing's being done with it. So getting the databases built to collect this data and then being able to interrogate that data is where you would come in. And we're finding early success using Splunk to do that. So I'd be interested in understanding how you're approaching the data interrogation and how you're building some proprietary structures around the analytics and the work itself.
It's great. Greg, it's so amazing to talk to someone already doing that. And actually, our existing customer also has a Pi, and they have the same charge. It's super expensive. But something is also, first we brief our customer on the data. So over time, it's like one thing we're doing amazingly good is leveraging the cloud, all those inventions. We can get data in a very cost-efficient structure, but we go beyond that, right? It is one thing we are doing, it is the algorithm. We find engineers, they are very busy because they have a lot of problems to solve, and hiring a few PhDs, try to compare with Google and Amazon to get those PhDs, it is pretty difficult. So what we did is this algorithm is they're going to crunch the data, doing optimization in a highly automated manner. And to do it, it's actually pretty repetitive work, right? Engineer is trying to, wow, I was running good yesterday, but today was pretty bad, right? Every day seems a different day. Then what happens to manufacturing? Machine has wear and tear, material has variability. So we're really thinking about Pi is also potential collaborators. So another thing we find is right now, it is 2 years ago when we started, it was still too expensive. Like cloud computing costs, especially for ML application, has dropped in so much, first time in history. Like a mid-market manufacturer can afford it. So one of our mentors, it is bring Wall Street Tech, right, where we have a lot of connections to Wall Street Network to Main Street. All of the things hedge fund has been using, like using a team of PhDs to build. Finally, we can use that to do something we think even greater, like make more product cheaper and make our entire economy more sustainable. But absolutely great, like happy to chat more, the demo the tech after that, but we solve exactly, we have a platform, can get the data, store the data pretty cost efficiently, but then our differentiator is the algorithm. That it crunch the data, you don't have to hire a PhD to make the system work. And that's where Splunk kicking, right? You still have someone need to write some Python script, R scripts actually make it work. Yeah, hopefully this answers your question. That's a great question, Greg.
Yeah, thank you.
Let me chime Matt in. I think Matt, you had a question, and then we'll go to Sandeep and Sri after that.
Yeah, sure. I think my question was just really around, are there any particular, two questions actually. One is, are there any particular verticals that you're focusing on, or are you just trying to go after sort of everyone? And the second thing is just really about validation of the changes, right? So one thing you can say, hey, if you change this parameters X, Y, and Z, but then you can't just implement that right away. So do your services stop at just analyzing the data, or do you go the step further and then kind of say, hey, we help you validate the changes before you implement it? You know?
That's a fantastic question. I think that's great. So actually, we do have verticals. We like continuous process. Usually they have lower mix of product, and they run decent amounts of their products through the same production system. And also, as Greg mentioned, all those lines build highly instrumented. So you actually don't have to install additional sensors. So as you see, those are beachhead market. And the second thing, I think that's a common curse for all applied AI company. Everybody's talking about how AI is great, but if the engineers or really operation team do not use it, it produces no economic values. So something as a Wharton team here, we leverage a lot of behavior organizational science into our product design to drive from organization level design incentive trend, so engineers use it more. And the prime managers also see the values. We do have a dashboard. The beauty of our approach, we actually benchmark statistically the profit improvement in about real time. So that's where our buyers like us, because, hey, we do make more money use your products, and we're paying a fraction of those money I made. We get a budget that was not available before. And so that's why right now we see it's an amazing market in front of us.
Very good. Thanks, Wei Cheng. Sandeep, I think you had a question, right?
Yep. So I have a series of questions that may change based on your first answer. So are you in the market, and do you have customers, or is this, what's the status of where you
So we have this, so this is a paid proof of concept in the already have value validated. The prime manager goes through the budget cycle, so secure an annual contract we are trying to sign right now. We have pretty healthy sales funnel, has rated kinds of AR about $500,000. We are raising money right now, talking with a couple of VCs now quite interested in a ML AI space to build a sales team to scale up. Yeah, that's where we are right now.
So just to reconfirm, so you do have a client, you've done a pilot, you have some test data, and now you are working on a full contract with that. That's that's okay.
And we have a couple of like level of interest, such as like people like manufacturing firms that emerge from, they do see a V-shaped recovery from the revenue aspect. So that's when it says, hey, happy to start in early 2021. Hopefully, next 2 or 3 months, it wouldn't deviate the economy that much. And definitely we see an increased interest after COVID, because all of a sudden people learn, oh, actually there's something called Zoom. And the manufacturing is a little bit lagging behind a lot of times. I think Greg's operation is actually a little bit ahead.
So based on kind of what Matt was asking, so that first client is in the chemical industry, and therefore you have decided to go after that industry, or you did some structured analysis to say this is the vertical I want to go after? How did you pick?
So early days we have top-down analysis, but mostly based upon how many sensors usually typical industry have. I have a lot of background in discrete manufacturing, so this is less instrumented. Continuous manufacturing typically is more instrumented, have more sensors. That's another thing. Also, we have like a bottom-up analysis. We analyze the entire manufacturing from an industrial database. We actually map out the entire all the manufacturing firms in US across different sectors. And we have done like during the COVID time, more market validation and research, and talking with tons of manufacturing firms. So definitely like it is something we pick based upon the data we have seen so far.
Okay. So, so through that analysis, you came out, because the way you are implementing, and this kind of ties to the question that Greg was asking. So through that analysis, you came up with a conclusion that your best solution is entry into market is by adding sensors. And maybe I'll ask the follow-up, because you know, in this world of trying to optimize productivity by gathering new data, the machine learning time frame to analyze what is good and optimum is not a short window, right? So you're probably 1 year into just training your system if you're using new sensors to gather data. But if you have an application where there is already existing data that is sitting in a silo, has not been analyzed for the last 1 year, you could probably go and analyze and extract and correlate it to throughput and efficiency, because a factory throughput relies on other, you know, weak points in the network. The throughput of a factory floor is equal to the weakest link, not the strongest link. So you may have some things you can do which add huge value very quickly while you work on adding new sensors to gather new data and train new systems. Just the feedback as opposed, it can, instead of, you don't need to.
That's a really great point. So focusing on machine settings real time that are critical to quality, so that you're able to catch things rather than detecting the quality defect downstream. You're seeing if the operator's made a machine adjustment, you see that instantaneously. So focusing on fewer sensors, getting your AI belt, as Sandeep's suggesting, may accelerate your adoption rate, because you can go after where the value is for the manufacturer by catching those defects before they get further downstream.
Yeah, great advice. Just a couple of data points. So we have data showing the algorithm start to kick in with the initial performance improvement in about 4 to 6 weeks. So it was highly engineered to leverage enough data, but it does require pretty high frequency data, like every minute data. But as Greg has mentioned, the machine has enough data, so it's new data. One thing we'll also reach out, it is people already have OSI Pi, actually have a decades of data already sitting there. So OSI Pi can upload the data, and also ERP system usually archive. As long as the ERP system is there, they can go back to a decade. So those customers, if we identified a couple of them in the pipeline, we're trying to prioritize. but totally agree. Like Sandeep, that's very good advice. Thanks.
Yep. Hey, Beicheng and the panel, we're going to have to stop this here. Shri, we'll probably take that offline because we're running a little bit later here. So Beicheng, thank you very much. There are other questions that I see coming up here. What we'll do is with you on email, and if there are any questions you have for them, we'll just take it through the channel. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Bye.
All right. Next, we have Paxef, Ilya Preston, the co-founder, will be joining us. Sandeep, if you could, Srinivas, if you could bring that up and bring Ilya on as well. And for the panelists, I know there were other questions that I saw, folks raising their hand. If you just want to notate them and send that either to Srinivas or to me or to both the Srinivasas here, we'll make sure we'll pass on that and set up that follow-up conversation. Srini, do we have Ilya on? Yep, there we go. There we go. Hey, Ilya.
Hi.
How are you doing? All right, we'll have your presentation up here. So we'll do this as the same 5+10, and I think a minute when we get to 4 minutes, and then in the second half 9 minutes, Srinivas will chime us in so that we stay on time. So let me hand this off to you.
Perfect. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Ilya Preston. I'm one of the co-founders of Paxef, where we build an AI and IoT platform that classifies and contextualizes supply chain data to de-risk B2B shipping and enable dynamic cargo insurance. Next slide, please. So we do this because the global supply chain is a not so nice place for products, right? This lack of real-time visibility, lack of quality data results in a lot of theft, counterfeit, damage, and loss. But more importantly, it also results in a lot of operational inefficiency, not being able to drive accountability up and downstream the supply chain, and not being able to optimize for things like inventory, buffer stock, and warehouse labor without truly understanding at a product level where your products are and what condition they're in. Next slide, please. This lack of real-time visibility and quality data also impacts cargo insurance. Right, so you don't have to look too far past the loss ratios in this industry to see just how difficult it actually is to price shipment risk. And it's really not that big of a surprise. When something happens, when an adverse event happens and a claim is filed with the insurance carrier, that insurer has to go out to the shipper, to the receiver, to the logistics carrier, brokers, distributors, everybody in the value chain, and basically collect a lot of qualitative information, right? Everybody's own version of events. And then their claims adjusters try to do their best to piece together what actually happened through the supply chain. But at the end of the day, the outputs of these root cause investigations are based on qualitative assumptions and hearsay. And that is what drives future underwriting policy. So policies that are very static in nature, that get updated typically once a year, and not real time. They don't shift real time dynamically based on shifting risk parameters. Next slide, please. So that's why we came up with Paxef. The Paxef platform essentially provides a digital footprint or a digital twin to the physical supply chain that's capable of answering who, what, when, where, how, and why with regards to any shipment in the supply chain. So the hardware here is essentially the vehicle to collect the data. The mobile app is what drives the workflow and ensures compliance throughout the process. And then our context intelligence platform is essentially comprised of two subcomponents. One is the actual contextualization platform that contextualizes the supply chain data and makes it actionable. And then that contextualization platform feeds a prediction engine that can actually help predict when, where, and under which conditions adverse events will occur in the future. Next slide, please. So the market from an IoT visibility standpoint is obviously very large, saturated, very fragmented, comprised of both asset trackers and visibility platforms. But the issue is there's really no set data standard, right? There's a lot of mistrust between IoT, between insurers, and between all the parties within the value chain. And that's because the data is not actionable. It's not contextual. So essentially all of these, asset tracking solutions, visibility platforms, they're all racing towards prediction. They understand that if they can accurately predict adverse events, they can prescribe to their partners how to mitigate that risk in the supply chain, and they can also help price risk. But the way that they're doing it is they're essentially collecting more and more raw data from more data sources. And our hypothesis is you can't just do that from mass scale of data. You need to properly classify and contextualize that data, know what's actually happening, and use that as the lever or as the basis for more accurate prediction. Next slide, please. So our platform essentially enables three things to happen. Number one is real-time intervention. Anytime that an excursion occurs, we can notify all of the parties. It's a central source of truth, real time, and they can intervene in any sort of excursion that's happening. Number two, we actually help automate the resolution, right? The root cause analysis. So once a claim is filed, we can actually take this digital footprint and actually import it directly into the claims workflow, automating the overhead, the time, the labor spent actually figuring out what happened. And we're not just looking at, location and condition and maybe a temperature data logger. We can see who actually packaged the shipment, what time it was actually packaged, how long it spent at the origin, any sort of adverse events that happen, whether it's a route deviation, an unauthorized package open throughout the lifespan of the shipment, any sort of damage or temperature excursion, et cetera. And then number three, perhaps most importantly, next slide, please. We actually look at all of this data, not just from our sensors, but also from third parties like weather, traffic patterns, fleet and flight and marine data, as well as enterprise data from ERP and TMS systems. We pull all of this data in, synthesize it through our machine learning algorithms, and come out with an adaptive insurance risk score. So essentially our predictive risk engine, which helps insurance companies price their products, commensurate to actual shipment risk, as opposed to kind of these one-size-fits-all block policies that get updated on an annual basis. And then we'll also in the future kind of adapt this score to the shipper side as well, so they can optimize their supply chain parameters for minimal risk. Next slide, please. So what enables all of this to happen is essentially the context. I mentioned who, what, when, where, how, and why. The emphasis is on the how and why, right? Answering what happened or when it happened, where it happened, that's fairly commoditized. A lot of solutions can do this. We focus on using AI and machine learning to actually discover the root causes. So for example, in a real world scenario, if a package comes in and the product is damaged, you can see from a shock sensor that maybe a shock occurred at location X and location Y at time X and time Y, but that's not actionable information. The insurance company can't actually do anything with that data. It doesn't help the shipper any. They don't know if that package was, if it fell from 3 feet or if it dropped from 5 feet, if it tilted over on one of its axes because the truck swerved or hit a pothole, if a forklift picked it up too forcefully, or if somebody's just miscarrying it under their arm. That level of granularity is important. And we don't just do this for damage. We do this across the board with all sensors, with temperature, humidity, G-force, acceleration, shock, across the board. Next slide, please.
Yeah, about time now. We have only 1 minute more.
Sure, I'll rush it now. So we're currently piloting paid beta pilots with 8 pilot partners, including leaders in the field, like JM and CUNY Noggle. Next slide, please. My background comes from the enterprise side. So spent time in finance and supply chain strategy, both at Cummins and in management consulting, like a number of you. Next slide, please. And really what I'll end with here is, the vision for the company. More accurate contextualization of data drives more accurate prediction, right? So even if we can get the prediction engine right by 1 or 2, improvement of by 1 or 2%, that's huge for the industry that has negative loss ratios historically. So this more accurate prediction will help us kind of open up our intelligence platform and go hardware agnostic. So we'll open up our intelligence platform and allow other hardware providers to integrate with our intelligence platform, as well as integrate an insurance offering down the road. So actually provide this data to the large underwriters, become an MGA, and resell that data back as a part of our IoT platform. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ilya. I'm just seeing, Betsy, I see your hand up. Betsy, if you could go start with that.
Sure. Thank you, Ilya. Really interesting, very well done presentation. 2 questions. The first is, can you give us a sense of the competitive environment? There's sort of lots of companies that have come up over time. They're not necessarily solving exactly the same problem that you are, but it would be helpful to understand where you fit vis-a-vis others. Number one. Number two, you mentioned on that last slide that you have some investors. Can you give us a sense of, you know, how much money you've raised? What's your,
Yeah,
you know, kind of what's that timeline?
sure. Yeah, so great question. From a competitive environment, the space is very saturated, right? I'm not going to try to pretend it's not. The issue is, you know, despite all of these sensors, all of these losses are still occurring, right? So $600 billion in loss on product side, cargo insurance losses up year over year. So we know that something isn't working, and we believe it's because that data is not contextualized. The market itself is really split into kind of three categories. Asset trackers that are kind of hardware first asset trackers. This is where historically the market started. These are like your Sensitech solutions, your Honeywell sensors, FedEx SenseAware. It's really hardware first with a software wrapper around it. Very limited analytics or intelligence. Then you have your visibility platforms, which are like your ForeKites, your Project 44, your Navispheres. Again, these are shipment level tracking, not so much product level. Which is an issue for verticals like food and pharma and some other verticals as well. And again, the data is not really contextual there. So we hear from customers all the time, you know, this level of visibility is definitely better than nothing, but we don't know what to do with all this data. It's not really enabling us to make any sort of different decisions. And then number three is really the bucket that we fall into, which are kind of these data science or data first solutions with a connected hardware element. And these are like your Parcels, your Roambees, essentially Series A, Series B startups that have started with the data component and built around that. And then as far as investment goes, we've raised $1 million in pre-seed. I think the core investors of that were like Northwestern Mutual, Rondo Ventures, Comeback Capital, some early stage VCs around the Midwest, Right Side Capital from San Fran. We are currently doing a 3 million seed, and we've got 1.5 of that shored up.
Very good. Thank you, Ilya. Sandeep, I see your arm up.
Hi.
So, hi, Ilya.
Hi,
I
Sandeep.
think follow up on Betsy's question, and very interesting because, as you said, the space is crowded.
Correct.
Track and trace is like almost a mandatory requirement for some of these articles. And yet you raised $1 million pre-seed and $1.5 million out of 3 million seed from credible institutions. So there's something in this story that we're not hearing on this panel. So
yeah, I mean,
and one piece I would think is happening is, you know, you're going through the track and trace, and in the track and trace systems, most of them are focused on the product at the final point, and if the quality is poor, to trace, you know, in the supply chain where it occurred, or if there's loss or theft where it occurred. Mm-hmm. But or to trace it back. And I think what you're saying is you have a contextualization system that can more accurately and more rapidly understand the point of failure. And that system relies less on installing sensors across the supply chain, more on some kind of a software data. Is that what just to make sure I'm trying to dig out what's this golden nugget you have?
That's certainly part of it. First and foremost, we don't consider ourselves a track and trace solution, right? Okay. So what we're in the business of is prevention. And the way that you get to prevention is accurate prediction of when and where and under which conditions these adverse events are going to occur, right? So you need to be able to synthesize a lot of historical data as a part of that and mesh that with real-time sensor data to get to accurate prediction of where these excursion points occur and mitigate them from happening in the first place. That's point one. Point two is really the operational efficiency side of it. So for the insurance carriers, that means automating claims adjustment, right? Instead of them having to go out and do all this manual claims adjustment and resolution and collecting kind of everybody's own version of events, we can import this digital footprint directly into the insurance claims workflow, automating that piece. We also, to the shippers and to the logistics carriers, those operational improvements come in different forms, right? So for the logistics carriers, it's a reduction in dwell and detention and rebooking fees. It's reduction in number of dispatch calls out to the truck driver. To the shippers, it's really the ability to kind of streamline inbound supply chain and then improve service levels to their customers. So improving on-time delivery, being able to enforce SLAs because you actually know what happened, right? Contextually, you know what happened. You don't have to guess. And I used to work at Cummins, right? So I worked in the global supply chain strategy group. When products would come in either late or not come in or come in damaged, we would spend tens to hundreds of hours per excursion. Supplier quality engineers would try to figure out if it's a tier 1 issue or a tier 2 issue or if it got damaged in transit. And it's a never ending story. Here, the idea is you automate all of that. You use all of that historical data in conjunction with real-time data to then prevent these issues from happening in the first place.
I see. So that thing didn't come out of your pitch. So I think interesting, because what you're talking about is optimizing the supply chain on a real-time basis based on historical data that says, oh, there's a hurricane in this area, don't ship. There's a predicted, take a different route or take a different supplier, or and that's kind of what the value is. And second, you're helping then overlay on it what the insurance company should be paying. If you're still shipping through a hurricane, your insurance premium goes up, and conversely, if you're willing to take an alternate route, it may take a day longer on paper, but in reality, it actually arrives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or like looking at specific carriers, specific routes, specific drivers. There's correlations, believe it or not, in terms of the types of shipments that you do, whether it's next day air or 2 day or 3 day on the ground.
Hey folks, quick check on time. I'm going to let you guys take this offline just in the interest of time. Alago has a question. I want to chime him in. So we'll do this one question and then move on to Michael after that. Alago?
Hey, yeah, so sorry, quickly. I mean, it's amazing that, I remember doing 101 business and insurance was started by Lloyd's of London, right? I mean, this was like what really started the insurance business, and it's come a long way. I would encourage you, sort of following up with Sandeep, is there's sort of the data part, there's the analytics part, and then there's some of this workflow part. And I don't know which part of this is your core value. Like, I would focus on what your core value is and partner with other people, because it's a pretty vibrant, large industry. So maybe, if your value is really in the analytics, maybe you should partner with others to get the data from all of them and aggregate it, right? So I think that should be an approach rather than trying to do too many things here.
Yeah, I appreciate that feedback. So our core is really in the machine learning and the algorithm part, to your point. That's why we're moving towards a hardware agnostic platform. So we're opening it up for we don't want to be in the hardware business. The issue that we saw at the beginning was there's a big discretion between quality solutions from a hardware standpoint in the market. So they're not trusted across the board. They're not consistent. They're not accurate. They're not reliable. So we kind of felt forced, in order to be able to build out accurate models where we can, flex essentially the solution and optimize for various parameters. We had to have our own hardware component, at least for the beginning, which is what we're coming to market with. But we don't want to be in the hardware business longer term. Once we get essentially what we call minimum algorithmic performance, MVP, on the actual models, then we will, partner with other hardware providers and focus exclusively on the intelligence and the contextual platform.
And similarly on the workflow side as well, partner with people so that you can feed your analytics into them, right? I mean,
that's what we're doing.
Get distribution,
Absolutely.
That was great guidance there. Ilya, thank you so much. We appreciate the time and the presentation here. I know there are other questions and feedback, so we'll take that offline. In the meantime, if there are any follow-up items, just we'll connect through IACS to make sure that we get those addressed for you. So Srini, next on the agenda here, I have Nat Nguyen from OTRAFI. Do I have the right order? Srini, you might be on mute. Next we have Nat Nguyen, the co-founder of OTrafy. If you can bring Nat up. Hey, Nat, if you could.
Hi,
hey,
guys.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Wonderful. Where are you joining us from, Nat?
I'm actually right now. Normally, I would be in St. Paul, Minnesota, but like I came back to Vietnam just last week, so I'm in Vietnam right now.
Oh, thank you for joining us from there. The transmission looks great, so that's wonderful. So we'll hand this off to you, Nat. We're going to do 5 minutes. Srini is going to come in after 4 to chime in that we have a minute left, and the questions we plan for 10 minutes. So we'll try to get as many questions in as possible in that time. Okay, let me hand this off to you, Srini, if you want to bring it up.
Great. Well, hello, future Ultra fans. When we think about food, we think about all the good things, like the color, the smell, and the taste. What we do not think about is paper. Well, except for me. My name is Nat. I'm the CEO and co-founder of UltraFi, and I constantly think about the 200 billion pages of documents that exist in the food industry today. Now, for this box of Cheerios, General Mills has to document all of its standard food safety regulation, as well as its heart-safe and gluten-free certifications. And to do this, hundreds of document pages are needed for each and every one of its 20 ingredients. And it's not just General Mills. Anyone who touches an ingredient here has to maintain and share its documents, from growers all the way to retailers. So for this one cereal box that has 20 ingredients and 3 claims, more than 20,000 pages of documents are needed to be maintained, organized, and shared by everyone involved. Now that was just one product. 200 billion pages of documents are maintaining the global food system today. And this number is expected to triple in the next 5 years because of the increase in food safety regulation and the consumer demand for more sustainably sourced products. Now, in anticipation of this trend, the more high-tech companies have started scanning documents. Unfortunately, it does not fix the fundamental problems. The manual process is resulting in long supply onboarding time, more product recall, and does not provide any insight about supply performance or supply chain. This results in lost revenue, more expenses, and higher risk operations. So here at UltraFi, we created a software that automates this process and let businesses focus on making great food. Next slide, please. We help companies meet regulatory requirements faster by automating mundane activities. Now, our intuitive communication platform enables faster onboarding time, and our optical character recognition and our natural, our optical character recognition and our natural language processing can automatically display all the relevant information along the whole journey. Now, finally, through the data that we collect, we can provide actionable insight that improves supply chain performance, such as compliance status or supplier's response rate. Now, by using UltraFi, our clients save money and time and push their product to market faster, thus more sales, improve the quality of their supplier base, and gain actionable insight that lowers their supply chain associated risk. Now, earlier this year, we deployed the beta version of our enterprise platform and launched pilots with Cargill and Kemp's, the 2 major food manufacturers in the state of Minnesota. And since our beta launch, we ultrafied thousands of documents, saved hundreds of hours, and generated over $100,000 in revenue. Now, in fact, just last week, the Cargill protein team has confirmed that they will want to sign a 1-year SaaS agreement with UltraFi for our relationship going forward. And on top of that, the Cargill corporate global is looking to work with us to implement a roadmap of how we would then expand UltraFi capabilities along the other divisions as well. So very, very excited about that. Now, next slide, please. Now, partnership like this provide us with an advantage to scale quickly. For example, as we onboard Cargill, they will naturally start sending information to their vendors and clients through our system. As those partners are exposed to the benefit of UltraFi, they will too become our customers. This creates a network effect where one Powell user will result in thousands of new accounts. Next slide, please. Now we can achieve this because of our amazing team that has a strong track record of working together, from winning hackathons in the US and Canada to landing pilots with major enterprise. But most importantly, what makes us even stronger is the support from the industry mentors like Amazon AWS, Cargill, Ecolab, and Techstars. Their advice from the early days has allowed UltraFi to be designed for scale from the beginning. Next slide, please. Now, UltraFi is not just replacing paper. We're collecting large amount of data from farming practices to food safety and supply chain. In the future, this data will enable us to trace information along the entire food chain and giving everybody a peace of mind. So become an Ultra fan today, and together we can create the food system of the future. Thank you. Ever take any questions?
Thanks, Nat. Very exciting. Do we have any questions from the panel?
I can.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, sure. So it seems like you already got seed funding and you have a little bit of success here already. The question is, it seems like there's a lot of other players, right? So I'm still trying to figure out like, what is your sort of unique advantage? Because we have stuff where we're, also have pocket solutions, so I'm just still trying to figure out what your competitive advantage is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like the markets, the majority market is still dominated by email, Excel, and paper, but there are other solution providers out there. We call them the supplier or vendor management solutions, right? And most of them started around the early 2000s, and the biggest of them all is our competitor with what we call them trace games, right? You might have came across trace games in the past, and what we found that the fundamental approach to solving the problem and the product design is different from us. So what they have is they have belief in this one form to rule them all. Essentially, they cause all the food manufacturers and all of their suppliers to use the same set of standard forms and questions. That way, it made it really easy to transfer information between different parties. But then they run into a problem that in this industry, food manufacturers, they view their food safety program as a competitive advantage. They want to be able to vary their forms, ask questions in their own way to really flesh out that food safety program that they have. Now, for us, we really believe in like flexible form building, right? Form building in UltraFi, it's free. You don't have to pay extra. Like TraceGain will charge you an arm and a leg. You need TraceGain consultant to change your form, whereas with UltraFi, you can do it easily. Camps has an amazing experience just working with us through that. And what we really rely on is our natural language processing capabilities, where we really want to understand the intent of different questions being asked. So one thing what we found is like, people like to have different questions on their forms, but they tend to ask us slightly similar questions, right? One is like, where did you make this food? Or the other one would be like, what is your production facility address, right? Slightly similar intent, but they like to have that flexibility. So for us using that NLP to really matching the answers that we already have with the intent of the solutions, with the questions that they're being asked. Now that's one part. The second part that we're really setting ourselves apart is also in the, basically this industry, there's a lot of like, third-party audit certificates from organics, kosher, and all that, right? Now, the way that our competitors have been set up, the solution in the past is they told all the suppliers, upload all these PDF documents in a shared folder, on some online Google Drive or something like that, and then the manufacturer go in there and download and read them off, right? Now, from the manufacturer point of view, they still need a professional quality assurance person to read the information, extract what they need, and also understand their own business needs in terms of like, hey, is this good enough for my business or not? And for us, what we're using that OCR to extract a lot of information out, then run the business logic on top, right? So we can flag any information that they want to, for example, I only accept AA certification coming through, right? I can quickly pull out this information through and then highlight and flag it. So save a lot of time. So that's for where we see is like, we're gonna be really different from competitors is really going to that data play. Now, eventually what we see that, in the future, it doesn't matter how you collect the data, you can be by like, trace games or by UltraFi. You still be relying on UltraFi to be able to extract the data for you and be able to provide the insight from the data that we collect. So that's essentially how we're setting ourselves up.
Very good. Thanks, Nat. I see a question from, do we have any other questions? I see a couple. Sandeep, I saw your hand up. So when do we have you go next?
If we have time, I have a quick comment and question based on what Matt was asking. I think if I read behind the scenes, you have a compliance system that is automated and to some degree using NLP AI. And the challenge here might be that a Cargill that is shipping into 100 countries, each country has its own compliance, and now they have to refill every form. And using your AI system, if I filled in the US form, I know 80% of what I need to fill in, and it automatically fills in and gives me some, oh, here's the remaining questions that need to be addressed. Is that kind of what you are saying?
Yeah, that's essentially that what we're going for. Really automating a lot of that compliance information transfer piece.
Okay.
So Nat, is that something you do only for food companies, or do you do that for other? Because that's a standard problem in pretty much every shipping.
So right now, we are very focused on the food industry, a lot largely thanks to my co-founder Lucas' background. So he like the whole reason is like, he was from the food industry. He has a lot of contact. He understood the problem. So, now he can talk to a lot of the people from industry and really be able to kind of bring our product forward. So that's why we really focus on the food industry. But, what we see is this would work across any manufacturing in general. And so one of the research that I've been looking at is from the National Manufacturing Association. What they found is manufacturers on average spend 3 times as much per employee on regulatory and compliance as compared to any normal businesses. And that's a huge opportunity for a solution like us coming in and alleviate a lot of that regulatory compliance. Like today, there's not enough innovation.
That's smart to stay focused in one area with food, and and then even in a protein channel like you're describing, you could take that for Cargill and then go into another channel. So if you have some proprietary protections or some agreement with them, but you could take Cargill and go over from there to Hormel and kind of spread out into the other protein-based segments and stay in proteins, for example, or go from proteins into dairy, but still staying in food and work that. And then as a packaging supplier, we have to provide the same information. So I know exactly the forms you're talking about.
Yeah.
We have a full-time person in each of our facilities that does nothing but fill out these forms and check on the inputs.
Yeah.
Very good. Any other questions? Otherwise, I have a comment and a follow-up to that. So Nat, one of the things that's curious about is as you go through this process, you gain an understanding of where the potential challenges could be based on the data that's entered, based on the historical data that you have. So are you guys looking into potentially drawing that intelligence and translating that into the time where the people are entering the form itself? That says, in the example that Sandeep used, if you enter this information in the US, you're now going to have a problem if you take this to Vietnam or the other way around.
Yeah. So, that's definitely something that we do. So one of the really interesting that we're talking to our customers right now is essentially, they depends on where the ingredients come into products. For example, if you have an ingredient come into your product from China, it triggers a whole new raft of marketing plans that need to be approved, right? So, if like based on the form, this ingredient from China, then I have to trigger a workflow to send it to a marketing person saying like, do you agree that this ingredient can go into this food? Because that might impact your marketing plan. And so there's a lot of that information goes through this organization that we really help to automate a lot of that.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I don't see any other questions here, Nat. So as we have other comments or things that come up, we'll route them to you. But if you have any follow-up for the panelists, make sure that you get that over to Srini or to I, and then we'll pass it along. Thank you very much. Great presentation.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time, and hope you guys all have a good.
Thank you. We're about halfway through now. The next team that we have that's coming up is Samaru, Skanda, and Purnang Prakash will be joining us to talk about that. So Srini, if you want to bring them up and bring up their presentation. While we do that, if the panelists want to take a minute to go grab a cup of water, just let me know and we'll give you a minute to go do that. So why don't we do that? We'll take a minute break here for the panelists to go get a cup of water. I know we've been going on here for some time. Hey, Purnang, good evening. I know you're joining us from India. Just give us a couple of minutes here. I'm just giving the panelists a little bit of time to go grab a cup of water. And I want to make sure Alagu is back on for this one.
Sure, Srinivas. Good morning to you.
Greetings. So we'll just give it another minute and then folks will be back on.
No
we've been at this for a couple of hours. I want to make sure that people keep themselves hydrated. Yeah, I think you might be on mute, Purnang. So yeah, I see Alagu's back on as well. Alagu, I gave everybody a minute to go grab a cup of water. So Pun, you're on mute, buddy. You're on mute.
Sorry, yeah, I've been on audio, even though I muted my video. So.
Yep. Yeah,
Hi,
so
sir. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
So Alago Purnank and his team are in a very similar business. You'll find this exciting. I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions for them.
Yeah,
we have been following Alago sir since this whole thing came into picture. Like since we saw him on the panelist, like BlueJeans obviously is one of the companies which we have been admiring since we got into this business. So once you get to know about the product, sir, we can talk further on that.
Yeah, we'll take that. We'll take that portion offline. All right. All right.
Sure.
So folks, next we have here Samaro Purnank Prakash, who's their CEO, is joining us here to walk us through it. So Purnank, take it away. Srini, if you could share the presentation.
Thank you. Hi everyone, greetings from Samaro, the most powerful virtual event platform. I hope you're all safe and healthy. Before we explore Samaro, let's understand the problem we are trying to solve. So please take us to the next slide. COVID has truly affected everyone's life around the globe. Industries have crumbled, with the event industry being one of the worst affected. It was the first one to take the hit and will probably be the last one to get back on its feet, probably unless it adapts. Event industry is also one of the least digitized industries out there. That's because we like to believe that events can only happen physically, but that's not the case. In a recent TED Talk, Will Cathcart, head of WhatsApp, said that we are going to find that the things we thought we had to do face-to-face can be done digitally. Texting, chatting on Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp is already preferred over in-person conversations. To top it off, our traction highlights the fact that video conferencing and attending virtual events from the comfort of your home is the new normal and 100 times more efficient than physically attending an event. Now let's talk about the team which has created this platform. So please take us to the next slide. On that note, I, Purnank Prakash, would like to introduce you to Samaro, the most promising virtual event startup there's ever going to be. Most promising because of the team that has created it. It is the brainchild of Tacnic, an award-winning experiential technology company. Having worked in the event tech industry for more than 5 years now, we have developed ingenious solutions using novel technologies like AR, VR, and IoT for the biggest brands like Facebook, Amazon, Adobe, and Government of India. Our experience in the industry has not only helped us form a huge network of valuable partners, we have also discovered the essence of a great event, engagement, and networking. We have instilled our insights and learnings into creating the most powerful virtual event platform in an industry that is currently estimated at $100 billion. And this industry is going to become $400 billion by 2027. Now, let's talk more about the product. So please take us to the next slide. Samaro. Samaro has been leveraged by organizations to host scalable and engaging virtual events such as virtual conferences, trade shows, fairs to effectively connect with their global audience and grow their business. No matter the event type, our powerful features provide immense possibilities to the organizers and attendees. For organizers, we provide a live dashboard which enables them to easily host an event and gather deep insights into attendee behavior, which is impossible in physical events. On top of that, lead generation has become highly efficient with CTA features such as the meeting scheduler, live chat, and private meeting room. All of this in a fraction of the cost of hosting a physical event. From an attendee's perspective, we offer an immersive experience from the comfort of their homes. The true objective for them to attend an event is to network, interact, and gather information. Samaro provides rich features like speed networking, resource sharing, live Q&A, surveys, and activity leaderboard to ensure users make the most of an event. Now, let's talk about the market size and the competition which we have. Video conferencing tools like Zoom and Google Meet are closer to WhatsApp video calls than they are to virtual events. They don't solve the real problems organizers face when they spend a huge amount of time and money in hosting an engaging event for their attendees. For example, our recent virtual event, the Renewable Energy India Expo held in September, saw over 9,000 attendees participating from over 107 countries with a total of 21 virtual exhibit booths. The event also witnessed 500 leads generated per exhibitor on average, along with over 18,000 resources downloaded throughout the event. This is simply impossible in platforms like Zoom. We are working closely with our customers who are helping us create a truly immersive platform. We have built features such as session recordings for on-demand viewing, matchmaking, and live notifications that have really enhanced the attendees' experience and have helped the organizers engage their audience while generating great ROI. Now, let's go to the marketing strategy which we have and traction after that. So please change the slide. We are a bootstrap startup with a team of 18, generating revenue from the events we have hosted with complete focus on the FET industry. FET is fairs, expos, and trade shows as part of our GTM strategy. We have already hosted 20 events for global brands with attendees from over 110 countries in the world, but it's still a long road ahead. Now we'll talk about the traction which we have. We have hosted 20 events and have generated 50,000 USD in revenue. And we have also hosted the events for 50,000 attendees. With Samaro, we aim to empower community managers who can leverage an ecosystem where people engage, network, and connect based on their interests. We are creating a community here of the event attendees and the organizers. That means professionals will be able to find events of their liking and attend them on Samaro, save relevant information for later consumption, and connect with like-minded people and expand their network. Now, talking about the organizers, let's discuss the business model. So please change the slide. And organizers will be able to boost their events by targeting the right audience within the ecosystem by choosing a suitable subscription plan. We are creating the future and we would like you to be a part of it. Thank you, and I'm open to the questions.
Thank you, Puna. Great presentation. Betsy, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Srinivas. Yeah.
Hi, Puna. Thanks for the presentation. I run an organization. We do a lot of events. When you said the first part of the business to die and the last one to come back, I would agree. Event is about 10% of my revenue stream, and it went to zero. And I don't know. And it's about $1 million a year for us. I don't know when that's coming back. So I have a deep appreciation, and I've used, we have used several of the platforms that you put in your competitor slide. I guess what my question is really about on the pricing, and wondering why you chose to go on the kind of dollar per ticket versus also doing a, fixed cost per client that you're using. So, you partner with my organization, 1871. 1871 pays X dollars to have access, and then you can charge the dollar on top of that, just because, it seems quite cheap relative to, and it's a cost that you can pass along to the customer. And if you could just talk through how you thought about your pricing strategy and why you're making the decision that you did.
Okay. Thank you, Betsy. It's really a great question. This question we faced when we started working on this platform. So initially, when we were working with our clients, because we were also a part of the event industry, and when the event industry took a hit, we had to change the model. And our clients were the ones who suggested that they want to shift the whole thing from the physical to digital. And we, being a tech company, it was easy for us. So they got on board, and then they taught us like what are the things they require for an event. So initially, when we were working for the clients, we had around 15 to 20 days of turnaround time because the features were not still finalized. We were learning like what is the exact thing people want for an event. But right now, if you talk about the turnaround time, we have it in 1 day. So if we close the sale deal, we have in 1 day have everything ready because our features of the platforms are fixed. That means we have developed those things. Right now, what we charge to our customers is the hosting charges. So that is directly dependent upon the number of people come onto the platform. So that is why we give a subscription offer, like for a 12 months or like a monthly. And apart from in that particular subscription period, you can host a set number of events, and that will be dependent upon the number of people who are coming for those events. So suppose if you're going for one event package, then if you are having 1,000 people, so it will be $1,000 rupees. $1,000, sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Sri, I see your hand up.
This is extremely valuable right now, especially with all of the academic meetings, for instance, going online. Some of them have 9 to 15,000 participants, along with the corporate situation. I know there's at least one competitor who's out there that we've used. It's called On Air. Are you aware of what they're doing and how they're and how is your product differentiated from theirs, or is it not?
Yeah, thank you, Shri. It's a really a great question. We actually keep a very keen eye on our all the competitors, and On Air is obviously one of them. On Air is actually a platform which is mostly towards the conferences. When you have an event, it's like you have Zoom right now. Events are mostly not about just the conference. It involves a lot of other things as well. Like people want to showcase their brand. People want to put product stalls. People want the lead generated. They want to know if the people came onto the platform, where the ones whom they can sell their product after the event has happened. So that is why when we were thinking and building this whole platform, that idea of brand visibility, engaging the people who are coming onto the platform and creating network among them was very, very much into the mind. And we gave a very much we emphasize on that part a lot. And On Air is mostly about the conferences, and we are mostly about the engagement and networking which we have to offer. Thank you, Shri. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah.
Well, you hit upon something very, very critical there. It's an area that I personally looked at significantly at the end of last year. And you're right, the one around networking, the reason people go to conferences is to network and learn and network. That's a very critical part. I'm glad to see that you guys have incorporated that. I did see Matt's hand and Sandeep's hand. So Matt, why don't we go to you first, and then Sandeep will come to you after that.
Yeah, no, as head of marketing, we have a lot of events that we do, trade shows that we're doing virtually. I'm just trying to figure out what will be your sort of unique value add, right? I'm still sort of thinking, what more do you offer, you know, than sort of a company like ours putting together our own platform or just an IT background. What we're struggling with is really facilitating meaningful customer discussions. That's pretty difficult to do online. And I don't know if you have anything for that.
Okay, Matt, I understand your concern, and a lot of our customers who are looking for the virtual event platform to start their events have this concern that how we are different and what is the ROI they're gonna get from this. So I will start with the ROI. The analytics dashboard which we offer, that is actually very unique. You have a tap on all the people who are on the platform. First of all, let's start with the ROI. So you have tap on all the people who are attending your event, where they are going, what type of products they are clicking, and what type of networking they are doing on the platform. So all those we make sense on our analytics dashboard, and we offer you as a data after the event, which you can later on make sense to upsell your products to them. This is the first thing. Secondly, the other competitors which we have, they don't have the facility of resources, sharing resources among each other. On our platform, when you go to a particular booth, you have 3 to 4 CTAs. Like you can schedule a meeting with the exhibitor, you can see the resources and the videos which he has to offer, and then you can get on a one-on-one video call or one-on-one chat with them. So these are the things which other platforms don't have to offer. And apart from that, the biggest USP of Samaro is the ecosystem which we are trying to build. Our GTM strategy is uniquely placed. GTM strategy starts from the FET. So FET is an industry where 33,000 events are happening yearly, and 33,000 exhibitions at those events are bringing 4.5 million companies on board. So when we have started with the FET industry, indirectly we are getting all those corporate companies on board on Samaro, because they have to go for those events. They create an account on Samaro and they get a booth for it. So after that, it is very easy to upsell those products to them, that you have already have an account on Samaro. Why don't you have a conference, or why don't you have your own trade show on it? And that has pretty much working for us. We have few of the biggest trade show companies on our platform already who have a subscription, like Informa Markets, Elets, Reed, Triune. So, and we are further getting down into this industry where we are talking to international clients, and we are the leaders right now who are doing the FET industry virtual events in India. Thank you, Matt. Thanks. I hope you answered the question. Yeah.
Thank you. I know Sandeep has been having his hand up. We'll go to Sandeep, and Alagu will wrap up with you. I know I'm sure you have a lot of questions.
That's okay. I will be quick on this one. I love what you're doing. Check out Vertway from Spain, Beyond XR from Israel. The key thing on success here is the user experience, the marketing pieces you've figured out, I think, but the UI, UX in this kind of virtual environment is very critical. And I would love to talk to you afterwards.
Thank you, Sandeep.
I have
Sure.
some idea on, I am an advisor to one of the biggest festivals here called South by Southwest.
Oh, that's
going
great.
virtual. We could get you in there, and then I would love to talk investment and what you are doing.
Oh, great.
So
Great,
we'll
Sandeep.
do it
Thank you so
offline.
much. Sure.
Thanks, Sandeep.
I'll reach out to you.
Yeah, Alagu.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the hot space, and I would sort of, I know there's a ton of people out there trying to do this. I don't think anybody's really got this figured out. So don't, I mean, keep a keen eye on competitors, sort of learn from them, and if they're doing something really well, copy them. Like, just don't even feel bad about that. Like, I mean, there's like a lot of stuff going on in this space, and it's changing. I would encourage you to sort of look at it slightly differently. Like, I mean, there's this tendency to always say, oh, okay, we couldn't do these physical events and now we have to do this virtual. So let's sort of figure out how to recreate this physical event in virtual with booths and all this other stuff. And really, what you want to focus on is, it's almost like you have this opportunity to actually be better than physical events. And so think about all the things that you can do now in this format that you couldn't do in a physical event. And I think you're sort of thinking along those lines, which is, I mean, if I go to a physical event, it's, it's more than just like looking at the booths and sitting in on presentations. It's the by chance sort of talking to people who are there, like, who are in the same booth, and they're sort of asking questions, and I overhear them and sort of start talking to them. And so, all those by chance sort of encounters are important. Find a way to actually do some intelligent way of matching people who are in the event, saying, hey, you should be meeting this other person who's in the event, like, those kinds of things.
Yes.
I think are super important. I mean, this goes to the user experience that Sandeep sort of talked about. The other thing is, you can innovate as much on the business model as on the actual product itself. Like, I think this is not done yet. I feel the company that's going to get this right is probably going to almost like sort of figure out like what Google did with search, which is somehow find a way to monetize this in a different manner where it's going to be free, but like you're going to pay per for results. And I think there's an opportunity. I don't think anybody's really got that figured out. So yeah, I think as Betsy said, I think you're like pricing too cheap. But that aside, maybe there's some other better way of making money as well. So I would iterate a little bit in that area as much as sort of focusing on features and functions.
Yeah. Thank you, Alagu. Really great insights. And on that note, like user experience is obviously one of the things which we are really focused on. For every event, we think of the perspective of the attendee and the organizer and then try to enhance it. But we eventually want to reach to a point where it is a fixed place, where it is a fixed product, it is a SaaS tool, which all the exhibitors, all the event management companies and all the organizations are onboarded. And apart from that, we are also we have that feature matchmaking, which actually connects people based on their interests. So whenever you log into the platform, you select your interest. Like if you're from a media, if you're from technology, if you're from press, then according to that interest which you choose later on in the networking launch, which it is one of our spaces, there you get connected on a one-on-one video call randomly with anyone who is interested in the same field as yours. So this is one of the things which I figured out. Obviously, we need more inputs. So I'll be also reaching out to you after this so that I can discuss further, because video conferencing is also one of the big things for the virtual events. You can have all the sorts of spaces, but people need to see each other's face. They need to talk to each other. And that is the thing which is our second priority once we have figured out the user experience, which is going to stay for a long term into the event industry.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to have real conversations. I mean, I don't think you should get too cute with avatars and all that other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so our focus is to keep the platform as much as light, because we did an event for Herbalife Nutrition where even the people from the village areas had to come onto the platform. So and they have really low bandwidth, like 2 Mbps is also too much for them. So we have optimized the platform. It looks like a 3D model for the other people, but it is actually just a page where we have given some interactions, and it opens pretty much quickly for those people as well. So we are trying to find that space, talking to the event management companies or other partners daily on a daily basis, and to get to the right place where you are talking about that. There will the leaders gonna come out in the upcoming times who will rule the whole place. So yeah, so that is what our focus right now.
Thank you, Punank. I know we could go talking about this given the interest and experience we've had with this. It's going to generate a lot more questions, but we have to stop this here. I know there are a lot of other items that we have, and we can take that offline and we'll get you connected. Certainly a couple of areas where there's already interest. So thanks to you and your team, and good luck.
Yeah, I have to plug in our own this thing too. We do a lot of career expos, virtual career expos, and something that we would be interested in talking to you about that.
Definitely.
We'll take that also offline, Srini. We'll take that.
Sure. It will be amazing. Yeah.
Right. Cool. All right, folks. Thank you, Punank. We are going to bring on Andrew Brown from RadWave.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Bye.
Right. Andrew will bring your slide up. I think Andrew's already on video, right?
All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate being on here. Good morning. My name is Andrew Brown, co-founder of RadWave Technologies, along with Lev Korak and Sean Morgan. We are a Delaware C Corp, founded in October of 2018. We converted to full-time this past January 2020. We're based in St. Paul, Minnesota, within the University Enterprise Labs. It's a life science incubator. And we make accurate tracking for minimally invasive and robotic surgeries. RadWave is a direct B2B that sells to R&D leaders in minimally invasive medical device manufacturers. So the surgical market is shifting to minimally invasive and robotic procedures. Robotic procedures has a very strong growth rate in the high teens. There are fewer complications, faster recovery, shorter hospital stays, and lower overall costs. RadWave Technologies enables this shift with our novel patent pending system. And there's not an alternative tracking system that addresses this shift. So here's our system in context. Underneath the patient, there is an antenna that generates a field, and there is a tool with a sensor, a RadWave sensor on the end that will be tracked on the control unit over an image. So this way you can accurately place the tool in the patient. And this could be a percutaneous tool, it could be a catheter, it could be an endoscope. It's in a variety of medical devices. Thanks. In context, this is the slide I'm trying to describe here. And so that's how it is in context. And could you go to the next slide, please? And so the current problem is you can buy an off-the-shelf solution. These are made in the early 2000s. They're thick and bulky antennas. It interferes with the workflow. You can't use fluoroscopy, or the C-arm may interfere. The navigation volume is small. It's only a couple feet cubed. So you can't go from a thigh to the heart, for example. You need to use some type of imaging to do that. So that's a limitation. And the key thing is there's poor interference detection. And so if there's metal in the bed or metal in the C-arm, when that comes into the volume, the current systems have inaccuracy. So your location of a tool may be a bit shifted. The alternative is you can build your own, upwards to 30 million to do so. It takes many years to complete, and rare specialized expertise to do so. And both of these options, they both have small sensing volumes, and they are inaccurate when there's metal interference. The dominant OEM has over 45,000 systems on the market, and there are tens of thousands of custom systems on the market from J&J, Medtronic, etc. So this has a very strong existing footprint. Next slide, please. So our solution is a customizable electromagnetic tracking platform that is accurate, modular, and works in any settings. We have customers integrating our technology now, And we have multiple support letters expressing their intent to use RadWave from top-tier medical devices companies. So in this image, you will see an example of one of our antennas on the upper right, the control unit, which is the electronics to drive and sense location. And in the lower portion of the image, those are our very small sensors that are integrated into a medical technology tool. So they're roughly a millimeter in diameter and 3 to 5 millimeters in length, so it can fit in many different types of tools. Next slide, please. So the team, the co-founders, we have extensive experience building and commercializing these systems for large medical device companies. We have over 50 patents. We have created this company because there's not a solution that met our needs. And so we want to offer this platform to a broad range of industries. There's hardware, software, physics expertise here. So we're able to create this system from the ground up with our skill sets. Next slide, please. So the business model, we have, we're grounded in a strong, scalable business model, service available market of over 700 million. Our platform is integrated into our customer's medical device, which generates service revenue. Each time our customers put their system in a hospital, we sell capital equipment. Each time the physicians perform a procedure, we generate revenue from consumables. We started pre-selling our platform in July, collecting 50% down, and our first products are shipping this month. Our new website has been created and we'll launch this month with a digital marketing campaign. And we're running a pre-market release this fall up through December, and then full market in early 2021. Next slide, please. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I look forward to your questions.
Thanks, Andrew. I think I have Sri getting ready with a question, but before I pass it on to her, you mentioned that you'd already opened up for pre-order. So what has the response been to that?
So our problem is our first run has a certain number of systems, and so we can't supply the demand. Every time we pitch, the answer is yes. And so we're going to be cautious in who we select during this first year to make sure they're tightly partners that are willing to go through this experience with us. And so, yeah, we're actively integrating this fall.
Thank you. Let me pass it on to Sri.
My question was about the risks of failure here. I mean, in the sense that who bears that risk? Have you thought about the liability issues in this whole chain, and how does that work?
Right. So RadWave Technologies is not a medical device manufacturer. We are a technology provider targeting medical device companies. So they will incorporate it into their product. They will verify, validate, submit to the appropriate regulatory agency, and commercialize with their liability insurance. This location tracking system is generally combined with other tracking systems to verify and validate inpatient for that accuracy and liability component. One other comment there, primary complaint with robotic for surgeries in the MOD FDA database is inaccurate tool position. So they have gears in the arms and the gear may not be exactly correct. And so they're creating cuts and burns, et cetera. So this is the dominant issue for robotic companies, and their arms are made of metal. So it creates interference natively with these existing platforms. And so we'll address both those issues with this platform.
Thanks.
Sandeep?
So I have a couple of just understanding questions first. So what you have is a device that goes on a surgical bed?
Yeah, it could be on the bed, under the bed, in the bed, or it could be the bed.
And then you have another, the other end of the device that goes into the robotic arm.
A small sensor on the tip of the tool, and then a computer control unit that does all of the processing and the algorithms.
Okay, so it's an add-on to an existing tool. But what you are saying is that add-on, the business model you have is you work with the robotic surgical bed maker to embed your device there. And then you work with the tool maker to embed your device into that tool or into the arm. since you're not a direct seller of those to a hospital. Is that correct?
Close. So we'll partner with medical technology company X, and they will incorporate it into their product. And that's the only customer we have. We will not talk to the bed manufacturers directly or the hospitals, right? So we sell to the medical technology manufacturer. They incorporate it into their console, their robot, their procedure, and that's how it works.
So what about the other end, the one that's on the bed? That's just a mat that the same provider provides and it gets laid onto the bed?
Yeah, consider it, you know, I'll pull up my portfolio.
Okay, perfect.
Like this,
Okay.
so you could just slide it under the patient, or you could mount it under the bed and screw it in.
Okay, so it's a one-sided play. That's my original concern was that if you're selling it to two ends, then it becomes a challenge because every hospital doesn't use the same bed maker as the tool maker. Okay, so you crack that.
One comment on that, it's actually an advantage for RadWave to have many different types of beds, because you can handle the metal in the different locations within each of these bed manufacturers where existing solutions cannot.
So the second, it's a technical question now, is so you've got some EM, you know, some frequency wavelength that your signal is working on, and your claim is that that frequency is the most immune to any kind. It can go through human body, it can go through metal, it can. So what is this frequency? Is it a gigahertz range, ultra wideband? Is it what kind of?
Yeah, so we run on a variety of frequencies. The primary reason for being able to adjust it is our customers will be operating on a certain frequency, and we need to be able to stay away from their frequency, right? In addition, there are different frequencies that have different performance characteristics. Low frequencies will go through, high frequencies will bounce. And so RadWave operates on many frequencies to accommodate these concerns.
So when you say many frequencies, you're saying it's a tunable system? Okay. As opposed to ultra wideband sequence system.
Manufacturing time configuration option, which is again not available. I focused on the primary features of the system, but there's a laundry list of other things that will make it easy for these companies to integrate.
Okay. Let's talk offline. I have a couple of medical companies, Hitachi Medical and GE Medical, that we do work with. So there might be some synergy and interest over there, unless you're already working with them.
Not those two. Happy to speak.
Very good. So I see Matt having a question. Sandeep, I'll let you take that conversation with Andrew.
Yeah, sure. Similar to Sandeep, I think I'm at Siemens Medical Imaging, and obviously, you know, we have Quarton. There's this lot of robotic surgery. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. We just recently acquired them. So I was just trying to figure out if you would be a supplier to them, or how you exactly would fit in. To me, it seems like you would potentially be a supplier in that situation. I'm just curious, what's been the biggest barrier to sort of people wanting to adopt you, right? It seems very logical. It seems like you have something here. I'm just curious, like, what's been sort of your biggest challenge so far in terms of people's skepticism?
Right. So EM, electromagnetic technology, the Achilles heel is this interference for inaccuracy, right? And so our founding team has created many of these products for large medical device companies. And so we have addressed that issue in our platform, right? So we have not experienced resistance when we pitch this to these manufacturers. The answer is yes. Now it's about executing, delivering, integrating, getting them through the regulatory agencies so we can start ramping sales next year.
Yeah, it helps. Obviously, you're not a medical device company, and it's on the medical device manufacturer to clear the regulatory hurdles, right? So for you, you're, I guess, more on the supply side, so no FDA issues per se.
True, and so our beachhead is this particular segment, but we are also targeting industrial automation, defense, aerospace, automotive, all of these areas that currently use technology like this. And so these benefits are most difficultly added to medical device. And then once we achieve this milestone, it will be an exciting journey to do these other segments.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. Less common is, yeah, it's just beyond sort of minimally invasive surgery. You can go into medical imaging space broadly, and then I guess to other verticals. So yeah, it seems like a pretty exciting tech. Wish you luck.
Thank you.
All right, I think we'll wrap this one here. Andrew, thank you very much. I know Sandeep will connect you and Sandeep offline so you guys can have that conversation and the other questions here. I'm sure Matt has some follow-ups he has as well. So we'll get you folks connected on that. Good luck. Thank you very much. Next up, I think we cleared the snafu here. Actually, next is Steam Chain, correct, Srini? Yeah, we're going to have Mike and Zach from Steam Chain
correct, yeah.
joining us.
Mike is,
yep.
me.
All right. If you could unmute them, bring up their video and share the presentation, we can get started. There, I see Michael. Michael, you should be all set to go.
Excellent. Is the audio coming through okay, guys?
It is. Welcome. Where are you joining us from today?
I'm joining you guys from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Wonderful. All right.
Thanks for taking the time to learn about our company. It was fascinating to sit through all the other presentations as well. Some very interesting ideas out there. Today, we're going to be talking to you about Steam Chain and our machine as a service solution. That is a new concept in the field of industrial automation and manufacturing technology. I'm led to believe you guys are going to be sharing the slide deck on our behalf. Thank you so much. If you click to the first slide, please. So myself and my co-founder, Tom Tichy, have spent the last 20 years in the manufacturing technology market, supporting some of the most advanced machinery manufacturers globally. My primary career experience has been working for one of the technology leaders in this field, a company called Rockwell Automation, also headquartered here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I had the opportunity over my 20-year career to work both kind of in front of the machines with the customers that design and build advanced manufacturing equipment, as well as the folks that operate those. And really got to learn the business and understand the challenges between the people that deliver the technology and the people that operate it from the front lines. As my career progressed, I met Mr. Tichy probably 15 years ago when we began to build Rockwell Automation's first cloud-based software solution, a utility called Motion Analyzer, their first cloud-based solution. And ultimately ended up running some advanced servo robotic businesses that were startup companies acquired by Rockwell Automation and integrating those into the corporation and the overall architecture. And that experience, and you can advance the slide, please. But that experience really created a strong interest in the relationship between the people that design and build advanced automated systems and the companies that deploy those things to produce their products. The manufacturers themselves. And, you know, whether it was early in my career when I was flying around the world to help solve problems between those parties, or more recently when I was selling advanced servo robotic systems as part of my business, I realized that the market for this kind of technology is very inefficient. It's very traditional. It's very slow to adopt new technology. I began to, you know, work hard to understand why that was the case. And for me, it boils down to the historic method by which people purchase and contract for the acquisition of this technology. It's a milestone-based capital procurement process that's heavily front-end loaded. You sign a contract, you pay money up front, you make progress payments as that equipment is being built, and then ultimately as you deliver that system to your customer, the machine goes into production, you verify that it meets specification, the final payment is made. All the risk for the performance of that asset, which has a return on investment calculation tied to it that could span multiple years, is really absorbed by that end user on the transition of that asset today. It's an industry 1.0 process for managing risk. in a time and a place where we have all this rich data and all this information that could be utilized and leveraged to create better relationships between those counterparties. Right? Today, because it's front-end loaded, that risk transfer is complicated. The life cycle costs are unclear at the time that that asset transfers. It may be, with new technology that it doesn't perform as well as the salesperson told you it would. It may be that your maintenance costs are much higher than you expected. It may be any number of variables that reduce the value of that asset and therefore impact the financial performance of the end user. Today, it's really a zero-sum game. Once that asset is transferred, the OEM, the machine builder, moves on to try and find their next project, their next paying customer, and the end user is left to kind of manage that asset over its life cycle and try and get the most out of it. We think it can be done better. Next slide, please. And so SteamChain built what we call a secure transaction engine for automated machinery. So if you're curious about our name, it's actually an acronym. The STEAM in SteamChain is the mechanism that we've built and created that underlies our platform that allows the performance data of the machinery as monitored during its operations to be used to execute financial transactions over the life of that asset. For the OEMs, the people that are designing and building this machine, it allows them to package the machine with value-added post-sales services, generating more revenue, enhancing their partnership with their customers because they're not just selling the asset, they're really selling the asset's ability to achieve the outcome for the customer, and generating a more sustainable and profitable cash flow as opposed to the lumpy upfront payments where they're jumping from project to project. They're really beginning to run their business based on the performance of their installed base, not the machine they delivered this quarter only to have to replace it next quarter. For the end user, the value is kind of the flip side of that. Instead of doing all the diligence up front and spending all your time evaluating the engineering team and the company that you're doing business with and the technology that you're buying, you can focus your energy on partnering with that OEM who has an equal and equivalent stake in the performance of the asset over time. So you become true partners, shifting the risk to be, from the current state, which is 100% on the end user of that equipment after they purchase it, to be shared amongst the counterparties, whether that's the OEM, the end user, potentially third-party service firms, et cetera, et cetera. Basically creating a better articulation of the partnership and the value that's created, not just at the time of the purchase of the asset, but over that asset's entire life cycle. Next slide, please. The mechanism itself is fairly straightforward, right? The equipment supplier uses the SteamChain platform to deploy a smart contract that monitors the performance of the asset over its life cycle, and we convert the performance data into financial payments that are visible and transparent to both parties, so that everybody sees exactly how the machine is performing and how that impacts their financial transactions over time. So they begin. You can design contracts that do performance-based billing for things like usage-based financing, post-sale service automation. And in fact, I forget the name of the gentleman who's doing the artificial intelligence activities. It's a great way to monetize the introduction of new technology where you're linking it directly to the value that you're creating on the machine over time. The whole architecture is built on blockchain technology, utilizing smart contracts written in Solidity, so that the data transparency and the ownership of that data is very clearly shared between those parties. No one party can disconnect or restrict access to that data once that contract is deployed, and everybody gets a single version of the truth that can be relied upon and used to execute those financial transactions at the end of the period, whatever that may be defined as. Can you advance the slide, please?
Yeah, you have 1 more minute to go.
Great.
Thanks.
I'll wrap it up. So for the OEM, this is all about increasing revenue. You're selling more scope than you were previously. Most OEMs in this space today want to get into that post-sales segment, and this is a great and efficient way to do it. Helps them acquire new customers more efficiently. It reduces the cyclicality of their business, which is a very difficult problem in this market. Everybody buys machines at the same time, and everybody stops buying machines at the same time. So generating an annuity cash flow based on your install base is a very healthy thing that people are looking for. And it allows you to upsell and add features and capabilities. Sorry about that, guys. That is my mother calling. I have lost the screen there, guys. Let me see if I can't get that back. Huh. I'm not familiar with the tool here, guys. I'm just going to keep talking and assume I'm on the right slide. And for the end users, which I believe is the next slide, guys, it's all about it's all about managing the risk of the deployment of advanced technology. One of the difficult things in manufacturing is just the slow rate. Everybody wants the case studies. Everybody wants to do a tremendous amount of diligence on their partners and new technology before they take the risk, because the risks are so high. If the machines aren't able to produce as specified by the salespeople, and really linking that to the relationship between those counterparties helps them move forward more quickly and be more courageous when it comes to adopting new technology and trying new technology in the manufacturing sector. So next slide, please. We've seen a tremendous amount of traction. And here, I'm back on the slide now. We've signed on a number of OEMs, manufacturers of industrial machinery. I believe we're up to 7 now that we're developing programs for that solve a number of different business challenges in their particular market, but it's all linked back to their ability to monitor the performance of the asset, share that data with their customer, and price both the upfront machinery as well as the ongoing service and support of those assets in a way that is easy for the end user to understand, easy for them to absorb, and easy for them to integrate into their operating expense of running their plant on a per product basis, as opposed to a large upfront capital expenditure. Next slide, please. So that's it for me, guys. Be happy to take any of your questions and discuss it further.
Thank you, Michael. I think I see a bunch of questions. Let's start with Alagu, then we'll go to Greg, and then to Matt.
Yeah. Hey, Michael. I mean, I think this is pretty awesome. I mean, I think it's sort of like, think of it like cloud computing for machinery. But I start sort of thinking about it a little more, and it's unclear to me sort of when machines are not used. I mean, you're not getting paid, and so like a lot of the idle time in cloud computing, like the idle time, your idle time is used by somebody else, right? And so you end up sort of making money on that time.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work in a situation like this? If it's idle, it's just sitting there, and you're holding the bag, and the customer's not paying you.
Yeah, so that's not necessarily the case. Our contracts generally focus on the overall equipment efficiency, which includes components for throughput, which is the sheer performance of the machine, versus the availability of the machine, which is the access to the machine, as well as the quality that machine produces. So it's a comprehensive measurement of the performance of that asset economically. But you're correct in understanding that, hey, if an OEM sells a machine and then the customer never uses it, there's not a lot of cash flow for anybody if you're only measuring per unit production. But that machine is available. It's an economic asset, that there's a cost associated with having it in their facility in a ready-to-go operating condition. And so our contracts measure many different variables and can be constructed to create a base of payments based on the availability of the asset, with additional payments based on its achievement of throughput, additional parameters based on its quality, et cetera, really any of the operating parameters that are of interest to the customer. The flip side of that is if you buy the machine up front and pay the $500,000 and the machine is unable to run, right, you don't get to claw back that $500,000, right? You've got sunk costs. And so, it's important to note in this market, there's a huge range of machines. There's a huge amount of diversity. It's a massive market. And we're not promoting a one-size-fits-all contract structure. We're able to create unique and individualized contract structures that speak to the exact value between that particular OEM and that end user in terms of how they want to partner.
Great.
Thanks, Michael. I think we had Greg go next.
Good morning, Greg Powell here from WinPack. I'm quite interested in this concept because as an equipment manufacturer, we sell package filling equipment. So you're putting the food into our packaging ideally. with our equipment. So we would, in many cases today, we actually sell, and Heinz would be a good example of this, of the film as well as the equipment. And then we are monetized on the consumption of the film into the individual packages. And I'm interested in what sort of sensing or technology you have with respect to the machine conditions, and to what extent that's incorporated in your model to understand whether or not the machine's being operated appropriately and according to our design parameters.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So we're not a hardware company. We leverage best-in-class IoT components to gather the machine from the data. And thank you for the question, Greg. The type of equipment that you guys supply is all programmable logic controller driven packaging equipment, which is our core market. That's where more than 50% of our clients do their business. And those machines are already natively very intelligent machines. They're very self-aware of how many units they're producing, how fast they're running, what their performance specs are. The challenge that we see is not so much that the data doesn't exist, it's how that data is shared and how it's acted upon by the people that are in the best position to optimize the performance of the machine. We currently don't believe that there's a magical algorithm that's going to make every kind of machine run faster or optimize every niche and type of equipment in the market with an easy to deploy solution. That's not currently the state of the art. And so we take a different approach. We use that IoT data to align the interests, the financial performance of the various stakeholders that are in the best position to work together. We still think this is a very much people-driven business. And that domain expertise is very critical, and that partnership is very critical between the end user and the OEM, staying in touch, connecting around the performance of that, and working together to solve whatever issues may arise that's impacting both of their financial performances. And so, Greg, for every machinery manufacturer we work with them to design what they want to measure, how they want to measure it, how that informs the contract, and then, working with them to make sure that that data is available to their post-sales support and service organizations so that they can create quick response time, which, by the way, response time is a metric that we deploy in the contracts, how fast they get from an underperformance situation back to the specified performance. There's a lot of different ways we can set that up so that you're really working on the organizations themselves. The business model is around getting the right people involved as soon as possible to maximize the performance of those assets.
Cool. I think we have Matt and Sri, and after that, we'll do Matt and Sri, and after that, we'll wrap this section.
Quick question. Maybe I missed something in the beginning when you said it. So I understand for the customers, there's no capital outlay, but somebody has to be financing this, right? Otherwise, in a sense, somebody, if it's a $5 million piece of equipment, well, then I don't know if you are then arranging sort of financial terms in the back end, or a bank is involved. Or I'm just curious what the model is.
Yeah, it's a great question, one that comes up very often. I'll first say that not all machine as a service require upfront capital financing. So plenty of the programs that we do, the machine is still purchased in a traditional way. But the post-sales service and support package is driven by data. Okay, so it's not always the case where you need that financial support. When there is that capital component, we do have partners that have an interest in supplying capital to the market that we work with. And also our OEMs sometimes leave it on their balance sheet. So it's not a one size fits all. We have many different programs. I'd love to go into the various different implementation stories and the way we use this technology. But it's not right to think of it as only a usage-based financing program, but that certainly is one of the very popular ways to deploy it. And we do have financial services that will come in and consult with our customers to help manage the balance sheet challenges associated with producing a lot of machines that you're getting an annuity payment on.
Yeah, I would collaborate that, Matt, because we will do it either way. We will finance the equipment, and it's reimbursed on a basis of usage of the material. So we recoup based on material usage, or then with the service contracts, preventative maintenance contracts, and the like, and in the case of the OEM. So you're acting effectively as an intermediary in providing an additional level of data and insights to provide more accountability on our part as the OEM. Effectively, it's putting more skin, more skin in the game.
Yeah, and Greg, you bring up a great point, because it is a very successful model today in the packaging world for the companies that produce packaging material and packaging machinery. They can link the upfront cost of that asset to the annuity that's tied to the contracts for the material. But a huge percentage of the market doesn't have that flexibility, but could also benefit from that kind of business model. And that's where we can connect the gaps. And so if they're not able to control the packaging material, or for Greg's business, they buy the machine on a packaging material contract, but over time they begin to bring in third-party packaging material, is a risk, right? It's a challenge to manage. If you, instead of use the proxy of the consumable product as your metric, and instead use the data driven by, derived directly from the machinery, you close that gap. You get lots more insight. It's not just how many packages they produced, it's any sensor, any data that is indicative of performance that can really be utilized to help them improve their performance, not just count their performance. So we think it's an exciting solution that there's already a market for. There's already a desire by the end users, and we're definitely feeling that in terms of our traction and our growth here.
Great. The question I had for you, Michael, I think part of it was answered, but I was wondering whether the real value was in this business model of pay for performance or otherwise, and you cleared that up, that you're open to more traditional financing models as well. But the question I have is, a machine is just part of a whole system. And so how are you, are you sort of expecting to then sort of go in and design and AI which sort of takes across, goes through the entire production system, or are you still working mainly with OEMs? What's your go-to-market kind of strategy?
Yeah, our go-to-market strategy out of the gate has been to focus on the machinery manufacturers and have them introduce Steam Chain to the end users on discrete pieces of equipment that come into their facility. But of course, once that happens, then they begin to ask, can we apply this to the machine behind it, the machine in front of it? Right? These are complicated environments, Sri, as you fully appreciate. And so we believe that good OEMs don't just sell a piece of machinery to a customer and let them figure it out, that they consult with their customer to design an appropriate solution, given their environment, given all of the other conditions that exist in their plant, and deliver that equipment with the expertise and the domain knowledge to make sure they're successful with it. That includes customer training, that includes spares and repair programs, that includes remote monitoring and diagnostics. And this is a way to help those companies monetize those programs. It's a real gap in the industry right now, right? Because that you sell the machine, and of course, everybody wants to, the strategic sourcing and procurement teams that are buying the machinery, they're just looking at the upfront capital cost and they're trying to drive it as low as possible in the negotiation process. What they fail to really fully appreciate is the total cost of ownership over the life cycle of the asset, which is fundamentally and primarily tied to that asset's performance. And so by shifting the model to focusing on the direct thing that the customer cares about, which is the performance, and asking your OEM and technology supplier to participate in that over time, creates that relationship where I may have sold the machine, but I'm going to come in and help coach and guide you on the other issues that may exist that may be limiting the performance of this aspect of your production, because it's in my best interest just as much as it's in my customer's best interest. We both make more money when the production line runs more effective.
Hey, Michael, thank you for that. We're going to have to pause that here. I know there's a lot of interest here, but what we might suggest is taking this offline, and we'll be happy to schedule and help you coordinate that discussion. There's a lot of interest here. So just be on the lookout for a note from Srinivasa from me on that. Okay.
I look forward to speaking further about this.
Yeah.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And the final presenter we have right now is Taw Byte. Sammy Fodil, the co-founder, is going to be joining us to talk through that.
Hey, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Sammy, but we don't see you. So I don't know.
I'm trying to activate that camera.
Srini will,
Hold on.
yeah, give us a minute here. Srini will turn it on.
Oh,
It might take a minute for us to just activate that.
sounds good.
Okay. While we get that technical glitch handled here, we had originally planned on having a discussion here at the end of this with Alagu, talking about what kind of opportunities change creates and how entrepreneurs leverage that to the various stages. Given the time here, we may skip that discussion now and set it up at a follow-up time. So for you folks are waiting for that, just want to give you guys a heads up so you can manage your time accordingly. So this discussion here that we're going to have with Sammy, it's going to be the last part of it's the last presentation that we have today. Sammy?
Sammy?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, cool. Oh, nice. Yeah, hi, my name is Sammy Fodil. I'm the founder and CEO of Towbite. And let's get started here. So next slide, please. 27 billion active connected devices, growing by over 100 every second, were accounted for in 2019. Those are serviced by proximity data centers, or at least about 40% of them that have a high low latency requirement. There are over 20,000 data centers or proximity data centers in the US alone. This will skyrocket by with the rollouts of 5G. Next, please. The big question is, will software scale to those new numbers, which are millions of devices, but also different hardwares and thousands of data centers where you need to pre-provision your code. So with bespoke automation through code, also known as DevOps, that is not going to happen because you need to write code for each use case. And you need to pre-allocate your resources at every one of those edge locations, which is cost prohibitive. Next. This is penalizing a huge market that we evaluate to grow to over 200 billion by 2025. And this is only focusing on IoT and industrial IoT. Our technology can be applied to many other verticals as well. Next. At Towbite, we think the solution is going no ops, meaning that developers do not need to handle any operations. At Towbite, we've built that first no-ops computing platform. We call that smart computing, and thus enabling software to scale to 5G and IoT. Next. Let me give you a use case here. So we do have three pilots, and then we're onboarding others. This is one of our pilots, Tectrol. They make industrial measurement devices and for manufacturers and factories and whatnot. They're actually up there in Chicago. They are leveraging our technology or our platform to build their next generation connected product. So they tried a couple approaches before. I'm going to skip the approach where they try to use Windows, because I really don't understand why anybody would use Windows for IoTs. So they tried containers, and that was a headache. They understood very quickly that they couldn't scale. And at the meantime, they were talking to us, and they really liked our technology and how we get rid of all the complexity of building distributed software and handling the operation for it. So they have pre-orders for over thousands units for the upcoming year, which will represent a recurring revenue of over 100K for us a year. and they will be growing every year by over 1,000 until getting to growing on about 10,000 units every year. Next. We've been recently featured in Dallas Innovates because we joined the 5G Open Innovation Lab, which was founded by T-Mobile, Intel, and NASA, joined by Microsoft, Amdoc, and other big players in 5G and IoT. We also won the Cambridge Wireless Technology and Innovation Award for Best Application of Edge Technology. And we're part of the Capital Factory Accelerator here in Texas. Next. Let me tell you why we got into the very selective 5G Open Innovation Lab. One of the corporate partners, Avanade, really rooted for us because they see the problem in large IoT deployments, and they see Tawbite as a tool to solve that complexity of orchestrating and operating software at the edge. We're actually working with them to get a POC kickstarted in the upcoming weeks. Next. And then let's go back to that Cambridge Wireless Award. That was sponsored by Qualcomm, and they didn't decide to nominate us as winners for that category for nothing. They really see that we are solving the problem of scaling software to the edge, as they are one of the big players and the big, one of the companies are pushing for computing at the edge and 5G. Next. We are projecting to get to around 1 million annual recurring revenue by the end of 2021 with about 10 customers, business customers. Next. Our team collectively has over half a century experience in the space. I myself have been an entrepreneur for a long time. I'm Techstars alumni. I won startup awards before. Ashwin Misri, he's been in IoT and embedded system for over 30 years. He worked for companies like Motorola, Continental, and Zebra. And both Monsef and Joe have a lot of experience in their field, respective field. Next. We have two great advisors. They have a lot of experience. Mark Thiele has been one of the first to push for edge computing. He was one of the executives at Ericsson that started Edge Gravity. He also is today one of the most called upon spokesmen for edge computing. Scott Collison has held a lot of executive position at different companies, VMware, Salesforce, SourceForge, and companies that had successful exit. He's actually, or recently took the CEO role at a startup that he's taken to IPO. Next. There are a couple players in the space, though they're not doing exactly what we do. We're not better. We're totally different. We're defining a new category we call smart computing, a cloud or an edge cloud that really will scale with all those applications that are growing every day, from smart houses, smart cities, to smart cars. Other players are only focusing on part of the problems. So Fly, IO, and Mutable are only doing edge computing, where Belina and Zidata are only focusing on the software deployment part on the IoT devices. Next. We are seeking 750 pre-seed investment to get to a nationwide coverage where we deploy our servers in major markets around the country. We are working to open public access to our beta this month. Our current pilots do have access, but that's kind of like private access only to them, but we're opening that to the world. And we're getting a lot of interest, a lot of signups, a lot of people, hardware manufacturers and IoT gateways manufacturers reaching out to partnership and whatnot. Build brand awareness and acquire about 5 business accounts, which are kind of like the missing accounts to get to around $1 million annual recurring revenue. And that's it. Thank you all for listening to my quick pitch here. Hopefully I didn't use the full 5 minutes, so I leave more time for questions.
Certainly, Sammy, thank you. That was very interesting. But I'm going to call on the panel before I go deep dive into 5G and edge related stuff, which I'm very passionate about. So let's see. Any questions? Alagu, do you want to kick us off? You're on mute.
Yeah, so yeah, no, this is something that's really, you know, as 5G takes off, like in, you know, more IoT, this is something that's needed. There's obviously different people going after it differently. I mean, so are you layered on top of one of the other public clouds like Amazon or any of the others, or are you talking about putting out servers yourself?
Okay, yeah, so our software can be deployed on AWS, but our big vision is really to for them to basically eat our dust. Like they are dinosaurs, they are centralized, they have a centralized approach for the cloud. The future is the edge, and the edge is decentralized software and distributed software. And really to scale to that, you need a new type of cloud computing, or of computing platform. And that's really what we're doing. And this is why during the presentation, I said, we're not better, we're totally different.
I understand that, but I mean, are you, you know, at this point, sort of getting the kind of footprint on the edge is a lot of, you know, time and capital. So are you initially leveraging some of the other public clouds and sitting as just middleware on top of them? Or are you actually, do you require your servers to be deployed in all these places?
Yeah, so we do not require, we have a minimal deployment that we can grow. Our software can, like most of the computing will happen at the edge. That's the main advantage, or at the device edge, so at the factory level, at the house level, at the device level mainly. But to function correctly, we need to have servers that we can connect to. And to offer that latency advantage, we want to be as close as possible. It doesn't have to be like always or super close, like in like being in the same city, but we want to be as present as possible. And yeah, not all of that would be like us having our servers. Some of that would be partnerships where we have revenue sharing, and some of that would be clients that have their own private deployments, and then they can use AWS or whatever they want.
Okay, so you're like a layer above. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Very good. Sandeep?
So, Sammy, what you have is a software that moves the computing to the edge as much as possible, right? So you are releasing some agent or some piece of code that now understands what that edge device is supposed to do and move the computing to that edge device. That's correct?
Mostly. So here's let me kind of like walk you through. Unfortunately, because of time, I sent like
that's okay.
a version of the slides that doesn't contain what we're doing that, but I'll walk you through it. So basically, software went through a lot of abstractions through the years, right? We started with servers where you have a lot of manual maintenance and operations, and then move into the cloud where we got VMs and containers. We started automating through code, and then move into serverless. Now we don't need to worry about the runtime, but there is still like operational need. So we're taking this to a new level, leveraging distributed systems. and a technology for serverless that's called WebAssembly that can run software independently of the hardware, and it's easy to move around, so we can provision it dynamically where it's needed, when it's needed. So at each node, so either it's our node or the client's node, which is on site, and it's kind of like IoT gateway. I mean, let me grab one of those devices. So this is like an IoT gateway. So our software running this, or this one, that's another one, and it runs on a nearby server. That's ours. And then we establish an overlay peer-to-peer network where there is communication between like that device and then the nearby server. So when a resource is needed, we can dynamically provision that. We offer other features that are also necessary for IoT applications and 5G applications, like functioning offline. So if one site goes offline, that IoT gateway that runs our software still can provide all the services needed. So it provides compute, database, storage, ledger, and messaging. So everything will work locally until connectivity is back, and then it will merge back to normal. So we really provide all those tools. We take care of networking, operations, and all the complexity around building distributed software, and we let our users or developers really focus on that business logic. How do I take, and this is one of our use cases, how do I take a thermal image and determine that there is a gas leak in there, right? They don't have to, with us, they don't have to worry about Linux, they don't have to worry about creating VPNs, they don't have to worry about storage, they don't have to worry about being disconnected. Like all of that is taken care of. They only write that OpenCV /AI logic of theirs. They compile that into WebAssembly, and this is provisioned dynamically at the edge.
Okay, maybe all that raised another 100 questions. So why don't I set up a separate technical call?
Okay, sounds good.
I would love to.
Yeah, we'd love that. And you're in Austin, so that's cool. The whole team is in Dallas, by the way.
Yeah, I'm in Austin, so you can come drive down.
Yeah.
We'll have a.
Yeah, Sandeep knows a lot of really good places in Austin. I can vouch for that.
So sorry, what type of programming languages do you support? Only WebAssembly, or like is it JavaScript?
So WebAssembly is like a virtual machine. It's like a JVM, and a lot of languages compile to WebAssembly. So as of today, TypeScript compile to it, C++, Rust, Go, and others are being added. So basically it compiles to a pseudo or a virtual machine bytecode that can be executed anywhere in any hardware.
So that's your sort of main form factor. So
that's one of the technologies that we leverage. We are not the ones that created WebAssembly. There is a bytecode alliance backed by Fastly, Intel, and other big giants that are pushing for WebAssembly, Mozilla and whatnot.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah, and a lot of blockchain technologies are also leveraging WebAssembly for smart contracts, because like each one of them was creating its own language, and then it's becoming like a big kind of like a different languages, hard to maintain. So they're moving into, hey, we run smart contracts on WebAssembly, use whatever you want as language to compile there. And we decided to leverage that because it is secure, it's fast. We don't have to move a lot of steps like a container. It's one file, and we can provision that very, very quickly and dynamically. It's quick to start, and you can leverage multiple languages for different pieces of your software.
Very good. Are there any other questions that we have here for Sammy? No, I don't think so. So Sammy, thank you very much. Really appreciate this. Exciting. I think Sandeep is going to follow up with you. I have a couple of other items as well, especially in terms of how you connect this to get scale, if you're how you're using CDNs and other pieces and self-discovery and grid communication. So we'll take that offline. That's fine.
Happy to jump on a call with detailed slides, and then why not after that we can schedule a demo. We can walk you through that.
We'll take that offline.
Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Sammy.
Sounds good. Yeah. Thank you all. Yep.
And appreciate it. And to everyone else, thank you very much. I know this was a fast 3 hours, and I really want to thank everybody for taking the time. We just did a quick check in terms of number of viewers that we had through the event, and across Zoom, YouTube, Facebook, we had several hundreds of viewers that participated in this. So from the perspective, we were trying to figure out how this is going to work out virtually. I think we are very pleased with the engagement, because there's certainly been greater than what we would have been able to do physically. And we were able to get a very, very good panel together that would have again been very difficult had we done this in Chicago like we had done in prior years. So I want to say thank you to all the participants, and a special thank you to all the panelists. This was very, very helpful, very engaging, and very valuable to everybody that participated. So Betsy, Sri, Greg, Sandeep, Matt, Alagu, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And again, I want to take this time to again thank the organizations. 1871, Betsy, you folks have been phenomenal, helping us connect to the right folks. Matt, Minnesota Cup, Sri, thank you for getting us connected to those folks, and leveraging some of the lessons that we've learned from that and applying it here. To Illinois Science and Technology Alliance, SoCal Alliance, Dallas Innovates, to Matter, thank you. And to the organizing team, Anand, Vishal, Satyendra, Ramarao, Chakravarti, Ramesh, and Srikant, thank you very much. We couldn't have done this without you. And with that, I'm going to give the panelists a chance to say any final words and wrap up after that.
Great job, Srini and Srini.
Thanks, Sandeep.
I think this went very smooth.
Thank you all very much. Enjoyed being a part of this. Very valuable. Lots of good concepts, and I think there will be mutual benefits from this opportunity to network and give people some test beds and our environment for some of these concepts, and be interesting.
Very exciting.
Yeah, really fascinating. Thank you for organizing. I was just curious, how many entries did you get in all? I mean, I was really pleased to see 2 Minnesota Cup finalists in there, but.
So I think we had about over 35 or so entries. And so I think anything more than that would have been very difficult for us to even evaluate from that, So our team did a great job, and, it took more than a week or 10 days or so to really scan through everything and getting the top finalists selected from that list.
Right. I mean,
absolutely. I think go ahead, Sri. No, sorry.
No, I was just saying that, having been in software for a long time, I keep finding that, everything seems to be now IoT, and then it's either you're centralizing or decentralizing and centralizing, decentralizing again and again, so I just wonder where the margins are in all of this. I don't, we didn't get down to the level of those kinds of details, but anyway.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Just expanded my perspective as well. It was very interesting, a very diverse set of companies. It just tells you how big the field of business is. And I think it's great to hear the pitches. And I'm hoping they got out what they wanted from this as well in terms of getting exposure to this technology. And I guess Sandeep seems to be one of the prime investors in some of them, at least, or at least some interest. But I hope they got out what they needed as well from this in terms of just getting exposure to what they're working on.
And we'll certainly be following up with them to get their feedback, and we'll share that with you. We'll also be offline connecting with you to get your contact information that you may want to share with them, and make sure that we just facilitate that and we'll more to the way so that they can directly connect with you and take it to next steps.
Okay. Great.
All right. With that, thank you all. Really appreciate it. We're gonna stop recording here, and then we're gonna call this event to a close. Thank you all.